Hello, and welcome to Select and Start, the podcast about meaningful and memorable video games. I'm your host, Keifer, and every episode I bring on a guest who selects a game that made an impact on their life. I have a wonderful guest with me today, a fellow Moonshot Network creator, in fact. She is the co-host of Unwise Girls, a Riordan reread podcast. It's Jacqueline. Jacqueline, how are you today?
Hi, I am doing really great. How are you, Kiefer?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. First question I have for you today is, did I pronounce Riordan correctly? I've only ever seen the word written.
That's the thing. People say Riordan. I think that might be like the proper Irish way. I'm not sure, but I think he says Riordan.
Riordan. This is Rick Riordan, who is the author of the Percy Jackson series, and in a wider universe beyond that, for listeners who may not be familiar with the author in question. It's a very cool podcast because I was somebody who had grown up reading the original Percy Jackson books, and I've never engaged with the fandom because this is when I was in middle school. So it's interesting to see a take on it, now where it has developed beyond what I've read and get takes about it, because this was at the time I was reading it before, it was like this mainstream thing.
Yeah, I similarly, I had no idea about like the fandom or anything beyond that. I had a lot of fun getting into. I have a lot of fun getting into like these books that I've just never read beyond the first however many I did when I was a kid.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very exciting premise for a podcast, and I'm glad that you and I can be on this same wonderful network together. For the people who don't have the pleasure of knowing you, Jacqueline, what do you do and what do you like?
Well, when it comes to what I do, I am a podcaster, as you've said. I do Unwise Girls, and I also do the Dead Teen House Party podcast on the Moonshot Network. I'm coming back soon. Coming back probably around maybe a little bit before this episode is released. And I guess this is something I can call myself now. I am a organizer for a local tabletop and board game community group, and that is something that I've really enjoyed doing with my time as well.
Analog gaming, cool.
Yeah, yeah. The wide world, the opposite world, where you have to go and do physical things with like dice and little toys and such,
Hmm.
but it's not so scary once you get started.
Right. It's not as mathy as people think it is.
No, no, no. Sometimes it can be, but and what do I like? I like a lot of things. I like reading Yuri manga. I like horror. I love slasher movies. I'm a big fan of just like trying different shit. I really like competitions and just things that can be competitive. So I really like getting into like sort of abstract games like chess. Not only chess, but like Go and Hive is one that I've enjoyed.
Goes really good, yeah.
Yeah, oh man, I've played some. Actually going to a Go club meeting later tonight for the
You're
first
gonna go?
time. I'm gonna go. And yeah, I am an enjoyer broadly of things.
That's awesome, and you have varied interests, and that's very cool. Talking a little bit about horror a little bit, because I'm also a horror enthusiast myself. What are some of your favorite horror films and slasher films?
My all-time favorite, it depends on the day what I say, but my all-time favorite is The Slumber Party Massacre.
Oh, good one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan. I it sort of switches out with like with like some classics like Nightmare on Elm Street and Scream for me, but I'm a big fan of that one. But I think Slumber Party Massacre is definitely one of my favorites. I also am a big fan of like Pulse and Ring and
Hmm.
I love The Grudge. Love Joe on The Grudge.
Hmm.
Horror is just one of my favorite things because it can be so varied and so you get so many different things from a horror movie, so many different emotions and so much just fun effects and varied acting. I love
Yeah.
when there's like one person who is just doing their damnedest to create like a really empathetic character and another person who does not seem to give a fuck, and that's sort of one of my favorite modes of media. And horror fans are so enthusiastic about horror too,
Yeah.
and I find that like there's a lot of really great creative inspiration that comes from like horror fans tend to often create things with such passion and despite with such like direct inspiration from the things they love.
Totally. But let's move on from horror and that interest a little bit to sort of talk about video games. As we know, Jacqueline, no community likes to gatekeep more than the gamers. So we have to check your gaming credentials here at the top. So let's go a little bit into your video game history. Who or what got you into it? your relationship with it throughout the years, what particular games you like, and so on. What is Jacqueline's portrait of a gamer?
That's a great question. When it comes to my like gaming origins is that I lived out of town. I didn't have any kids near me really. There was like one kid. So a lot of my daily fun ended up being once my parents decided, hey, this kid needs something to do.
Hmm.
Ended up being playing the original Game Boy. And I had a lot of fun playing like Pokemon Blue was probably my first game. But then eventually I like played a lot of GBA, Game Boy Color, eventually the Nintendo DS. I had some family members who would pass on gaming to me a little bit, like my older brothers. One of them gave me like his copy of Pokemon Emerald, and that was a big like experience for me because I didn't have to play through the whole game. I was just right there at the battle frontier. I
Right.
I could just like, oh shit, I have this whole cool team. I can just fucking destroy people right away.
Yeah.
And my other brother who had a lot of like PlayStation games and games we're going to talk about today, but also things like Destroy All Humans, I think was one of those games.
Classic.
Absolutely. And a lot of my childhood was just defined by like going to Blockbuster and renting a game.
Sure. Yeah. No, I mean, like, it sounds like there's that intersection at you and Jay, who was previously on the podcast to talk about Outer Wilds, like coming from a small, nowhere kind of area, getting really into the Game Boy and Pokemon in particular. So, like, I was freaking out for a second. It's like, oh my God, have we talked about this before? Oh my God. But then you talk about the PlayStation and like Destroy All Humans and stuff like that. And that's, so what would you say, like, some of your favorite games and like your favorite genre of games are?
I'm a big fan of like roguelike deck builders and stuff, obviously.
Mhm.
I really like visual novels and just sort of like JRPGs. Some of my favorites have been like, I really like Golden Sun. Big fan of rhythm games too, actually. I had a long period of my life where I was just playing like Love Live on my phone and that was my video gaming. Like I tend to enjoy a lot of things, but the Pokemon series has always been there for me.
Mhm.
They call me Jacqueline Swampert. It's not for no reason. It's it's not just because it's my Tumblr URL. It's also because I like the guy. I'm a close personal friend of Swampert.
I thought it was your last name. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can I admit something? I did consider changing my legal last name to Swampert at one point.
Hell yeah.
It didn't happen. I didn't want that much knowledge about me to be out there,
Hmm.
but it's a big part of me.
Can we actually get that done? Like, is it too late for this?
You know, give me the $100 or whatever, and I'll do it.
Like, if people join like the Unwise Girls Patreon, could that be like a stretch goal?
Yeah, let's call it. This announcement will only be for here. If we get the Unwise Girls Patreon to $1,000 a month, I will change my last name to Swampert legally.
There we go. I think that would be a great thing for the ecosystem. I support it.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. But you mentioned other JRPGs. What would you say, like, beyond Pokemon are some JRPGs you like?
I love Golden Sun.
Yeah.
Golden Sun just fucking owns. I love this. I mean, I guess that's another like monster collecting game, but I love the esoteric like world building and the really cool characters. I love a good character design in a game. I have recently played. I say recently, I mean like in the last 5 years. For the first time, played Chrono Trigger.
Hell yeah.
I thought that was so killer. One of the best like. Shit, there are multiple endings in this thing. That really blew me out of the water.
Yeah, it's like top 10 video games of all time for me.
Yeah. And I've never gone too deep in the Final Fantasies. I've never gone super deep into like a Xenoblade or what have you. Honestly, most of my if it's on a console, there's a 50 to 90% chance less that I've played it.
Right. It seems like your relationship with gaming, especially early gaming, is like rooted in handheld stuff, which the Game Boy Advance and the DS were killer JRPG consoles. Like, if you were growing up with those consoles, it was a great vector through which to get into that genre because they ported most of the early Final Fantasy games onto that and the early Dragon Quest games onto the Game Boy Advance and DS with, you know, these quality of life upgrades. So you're not dealing with like the 90s esoteric whatever bullshit. There's obviously the Pokemon games, and then like you have like your weirder out there RPGs like the Mario and Luigi games. And
yes, I
yeah.
love the Mario and Luigi games when I was a kid. That was probably my like second favorite RPG series out there.
It's great. I mean, I never played the one that crossed over with Paper Mario, but I remember playing up to Dream Team. So, I mean, I liked all those games. So, great little wonderful series there, and I'm glad that it's coming back. They're bringing it back.
Yes. So excited.
Hell yeah. And yeah, no, so like that's the way I got into RPGs. It's how I got into the Final Fantasy series because that's how I played their remake of Final Fantasy IV on the DS. I played Dragon Quest IX, which was my first Dragon Quest game on the DS. So yeah, you're in good company here. It's 70 hours into Final Fantasy VII Rebirth right now. And God, I love it. It takes up so much of my life though. But you mentioned like the PlayStation was also a console that you got into. What did you like to play on that besides Destroy All Humans?
PlayStation was mostly at my brother's house. I did have a PlayStation 1 at home where I played this awful, truly awful, I think it was a Dragon Ball GT fighting game.
Oh yeah, I know what you're talking about. I think Final Bout or something like that.
Final Bout, yeah. And that was a ton of fun. It was probably baby's first fighting game for me, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a lot of it for me. I didn't have a ton of PlayStation games. Occasionally I would play PS2 games like I think Spyro was one of those, like the Crash Bandicoot. I definitely played those ones.
Yeah.
It was a pretty just like what was around. All right, I'll play that one.
No, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Like the PlayStation 2 still is, Switch is catching up, like the most successful video game console ever. And that comes with having a very robust library. So it is kind of like that ecosystem of like the PlayStation 2 is kind of like whatever's on here. It could be anything. And it gives us gems like, those mascot platforming games, your Sly Coopers, Ratchet and Clanks. It gives you your Tony Hawk Undergrounds. And it also just gives you like weirdo bullshit. Like, why did the Dragon Ball GT fighting game come out in 1997 on the PlayStation 1 before we even had any sense of what Dragon Ball Z was in the West?
That's a good question. I feel like I remember an anecdote about that having like just like obviously completely different voice acting too.
Mm-hmm.
It's so charming to me to go back and listen to that.
Yeah. How's your video game taste evolved into like your adulthood?
I play a lot of games from like just like indie games on itch and various Steam games. I have a hard time. Like I have a Switch, I still have my DS. I like to go back and play these games, but I have a harder time sitting down and just playing something that is like that I have to like set up the TV for, or just like hold something that is not my computer in my hands, if I'm being honest.
Interesting. Like I have the opposite issue where recently this has become less of an issue during my current spell of unemployment, but the computer was scary for me for a long time because I would spend 8 hours a day at my computer. So playing computer games, annoying, but console gaming on the couch, love it. Can't get enough of it.
See, that makes sense. Maybe I should try that sometime.
Yeah.
I've really enjoyed a lot of games like Sign of the Sojourner, I think is one. That's a really good little game where you just like use cards to have conversations in a really sweet way. Games like Celeste and a lot of like I said before, a lot of visual novels too. I've really enjoyed games like Coquette Dragoon. Obviously, like one of my all-time favorite series, the sort of We Know the Devil and Heaven Will Be Mine duology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of those.
I've never heard of these. These are the visual novels you're talking about?
Yeah. Those are sort of like queer, like groups of girls who have some fucked up shit going on with them. There's these sort of choice-based endings, and often a true ending in both of them where you sort of like have to make the right choices and you achieve sort of achieve the true ending. But I really find the writing is so top notch. Probably the biggest like the visual novel that I've played and that's most affected me has been Umineko When They Cry,
Mm-hmm.
which is if people don't know it, it is this like eight chapter long, massive, like longer than God visual novel about just like what if Succession had a witch in it.
Hell yeah. Love that. So this sounds like a loaded question. Besides being a lesbian, how did you get into visual novels?
Oh, that is a good question though. That is a good question. I think it probably started with oh, interesting. I had a this like I think it's probably like through adventure games.
Hmm.
Games like the Zero Escape series and Ace Attorney sort of opened me up to more story-based games that weren't purely story, but that were had the mechanics were light, and I that sort of was my gateway, especially because those were both available on the DS, which I played a lot of.
Yeah, that would absolutely make sense now that you mention it, because the DS was, in addition to being a massive JRPG machine, was a massive visual novel, sort of, or adventure game with visual novel aspects. However people want to categorize those things. I know it's like a discourse within a discourse within a discourse that's so niche and matters to a few thousand people. But point is, these visually similar types of genres, the adventure and the visual novel series. And I recently did the Ace Attorney series, and that's really opened me up to wanting to explore more of this variety of stuff over here, because I do like the point and click nature of these things, but really I'm compelled by the narrative, and anything that can really tell good stories in a novel way, would love to experience it.
Yeah, that's really what it was, right? It's the stories that hook you, and that's why I get into things like, oh yeah, my favorite game, it's Umineko, a game with maybe one mechanic in the entire game, which is click, the mechanics are click forward, and once in the game, like maybe make a choice. And that just perfect gaming.
Yeah. What would you recommend to somebody like me who is like just come off of like a Phoenix Wright series of games? Like, what would you recommend to somebody trying to get more into this type of experience?
I think there's two directions. If you want something where you get a lot of twists and turns and still have a little bit of mechanical grounding, where there's still like a gameplay aspect to it, I would say go with the Zero Escape series. Start with 9 hours, 9 persons, 9 doors. That is a stellar work. There's kind of something for everyone in it. And on the other hand, I would say if you're just like, I want a great story that is sort of like I'm here, I'm at my video game console and I'm just here to click continue and read this. I would say start with something like Higurashi. Higurashi When They Cry is a horror visual novel series where I think the first chapter is still the first chapter was made free during the beginnings of the COVID-19 pandemic, until which point a suitable vaccine was created, and I think they just forgot to unmake it free. So or they know something that we don't.
They're on to us.
And so I think that chapter one of that game has some bumps, but is just incredible writing overall, incredible character writing, and some great horror. And so that is sort of those are the two paths I would say.
Okay. Noted here. I want to actually, get more into the genre and explore more of this. And I think these are great recommendations. You're the second person to mention Zero Escape. So that's confirmation there for me. We've talked a bit about the DS and a little bit about the Switch, and you mentioned the PlayStation a little bit. What would you say your favorite console is?
My favorite console is probably this is God. I've been thinking about this question, and I think about it basically every time I listen to a Select and Start episode, and I'm like, oh, I basically every time flip my answer. But I think where I am right now, I will say that it's probably the GameCube.
Yep, one of the most common refrains on here, but let's hear why.
The GameCube is just it's just a little friend. It's just a little box that you can have where you can play some of the best and some of the worst. It's just like this was the game along with like my DS, which is probably my also tied answer, maybe the 3DS specifically.
Hmm.
It has such a library of great games. It's aesthetically really nice. I love the shape. I love the disc shape. I like just the little circles. There's nothing quite like the GameCube to me. It never felt like a chore to start playing up my GameCube like it did the Wii. Also, the Wii continuing to support GameCube games probably is a reason that I am still like, yep, GameCube. It's my GameCube too.
Yeah. You mentioned having older siblings, and I do think that people with older siblings just have this relationship and kinship with the GameCube because it feels like a little sibling console. It literally launched with a Luigi game.
Yeah,
People our age just have this kinship with this silly device that was nowhere near as popular as the PlayStation 2. And it doesn't feel contrarian when people say that they love the GameCube. There's just a sincere love for not even an experimental console. It was very in line with the sensibilities next to the Xbox and the PlayStation 2, but it was just more colorful. Like you said, there was just like a game design sensibility that was more experimental on there, with Nintendo being not used to being second place in the console wars.
Right. Obviously, there's a wide array of video games on any platform, on any console you can imagine. But any console where custom robo and the weird Mega Man game where you're going on like an assault mission and
Oh,
like
Jesus.
yeah, and fucking games like Tony Hawk's Underground or the Resident Evil remake, when a system where all of those can coexist is just right for my heart.
Yeah, it was good because like it had like your multi-platform releases, and in a lot of ways, some of them were best played on GameCube, and some of them, because I think a lot of people don't recognize that the GameCube was technically more powerful than the PS2, or was at least able to like render more colors. It was a very specific weird thing, but yeah, no, I think it was a console that was very underappreciated at the time, but has definitely endured because of its very specific, not just the exclusives, but like how it also was able to coexist with the multi-platform stuff. You mentioned the weird Mega Man game and your what else do you remember playing on your GameCube?
Tons of shit. This is the console that I would just always go back and like rent games for from Blockbuster for. But some of the big ones, Custom Robo was certainly one. It was just like the appeal of fighting little robots and getting to customize them is so high.
Mhm.
Pokemon Coliseum, XD Gala
Yeah.
Darkness, those ones were huge.
Yeah.
Oh, Digimon World 4 was one that I played a lot. I forget about sometimes, but just a little beat 'em up hack and slash style Digimon game. That but probably the one that I ended up going back to the most, other than games that we're talking about today, was the Naruto fighting games and the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction.
Oh yeah, the Clash of the Ninja games. Those, yeah, I remember those games. My brother had them and I played them with him. Yeah, I never played the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction game, but my best friend and roommate Avery loved that game, and I definitely want to like figure out a way to play it and check it out, because I mean, I feel like there's like in the AAA space, everything is so presentation oriented and so authored and guided that you don't really have like just a random sandbox game from a licensed property anymore. And I just want to smash, I just want to Hulk smash.
No, yeah, that's sort of a sandbox is so important to me. And I heard that the developers went on to do something that was like kind of similar to this eventually, like uh
It's not Prototype, was it?
Prototype. I think that's the one.
It's Radical Entertainment, who were, yep, it was literally Prototype. Yep, nailed it, got it in one. Yeah, Radical Entertainment, who developed the Incredible Hulk Ultimate Destruction, also developed The Simpsons Hit and Run, Scarface, The World Is Yours. Holy shit. Prototype and Prototype 2. Damn, these guys know open worlds. Good for them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's killer.
You see, this is why I love doing a video game podcast, finding stuff out like this. They now have been used as Activision's support team, so that's unfortunate.
Mm-hmm.
Which we will talk about later. Oh my god, this is actually perfect. But yeah, no, Radical Entertainment had this like great 6th and 7th generation run. This is incredible. I know we're talking about this generation of games for like the whole episode, but it does feel like, before Disney had their hands on everything and before it took like 6 years to develop a video game, we were fast and loose with licensed games, and certainly most of them are dog shit, but the diamonds in the rough really made it worth it. The people who are making your Simpsons hit and runs and your Spider-Man 2s or whatever.
Yeah, it's not the same anymore. Back in the day it was different than it was now, and as someone who was there back in the day, I have to say that things were different and I liked them better when I was a kid.
And now everything is owned by Activision, which is also now a Microsoft subsidiary, and everything is just like only AAA video games ever. But let's not be a bummer. Let's take this time to ask, what have you been playing lately?
Good question. I've been replaying the Zero Escape series. Been doing that on stream lately over on moonshot.move. And I've also been replaying, but I've been playing a lot of other games like recently. This is just a completely unrelated type of game to anything else I've mentioned so far. Journey of Wrestling.
Oh yeah?
Journey of Wrestling is just like a wrestling promotion booking simulator.
Okay.
It turns out that it's really fun to just take either like, here's this very specific era of New Japan Pro Wrestling and all the wrestlers that were there. Fucking you figure it out what to do with all of them. Or create like, here's a bunch of fictional characters, or Jory created a moonshot promotion that has all of us in it. Like, figure out what stories to tell there. There's something so purely satisfying about creating a wrestling story.
Oh yeah, this is a simulation video game. Like, it's like Roller Coaster Tycoon, but for wrestling. Which, I mean, I love little management things like that. Wow, you can literally play this in your browser, huh?
Yeah, it like, I think it like just came to Steam, but yeah, it's browser capable.
Oh wow, I'm totally not going to play this in the background when we have our conversation. What are you talking about?
And I started playing Pyre, haven't gotten too far in that, but I enjoy the little soccer bits of that. That's another, I guess, like sort of visual novel integrated type game. And something that I've sort of been trucking along with is the Somnium Files Nirvana Initiative, which is the sequel to the successive game series made from the creator of Zero Escape and that sort of team.
Okay.
And it's basically like, what if the police department had psychic cops who could go into your dreams and prove that you were, that you actually did something you didn't want to admit. Now, this may sound bad.
Mm-hmm.
Period. And that is it's a great little murder mystery series, and I am really enjoying the second one because it's just so wacky. It's such pure humor and drama that I have been greatly enjoying it.
Sounds really good. My only bit of feedback on that is it should be called Murder She Dreamt.
Murder She Dreamt is good. Dreamt is good.
Maybe there's copyright issues with that, but I'm just saying, let's punch up the title. But yeah, no, I mean, that's great that you've been playing some, a wide variety of games here. Like, you're primarily on the computer and on the Switch now, you said?
Yeah, I like, for instance, I've been doing a little bit of the Tears of the Kingdom stuff. I think I last touched it like 3 months ago, though.
Yeah.
It just doesn't grab me. I'm sure I could pick it up and play like 7 hours of it, but
not talky enough for you.
It's not talking. See, I need to create the I need to create like the weird unicycle that I use to get around the overworld, and then for it to pull me into a cutscene where it just plays like Link pontificating about the nature of reality for 3 hours before it returns me the gameplay.
Yeah, not enough grids, not enough narrative.
No. If it was a Fire Emblem game, I would get on that instantly, actually.
Yeah.
It's just grid-based Legend of Zelda. Now that's Pokemon knew what they were doing when they made Pokemon Conquest and turned that grid-based. If Zelda became grid-based, I think that the world would explode from how purely good it was.
Right. Yeah, but unfortunately, it's not a historically accurate depiction of feudal Japan, and so I can't play that game.
That's true.
Yeah, of course. This woke nonsense. A black Rayquaza, guys? Come on.
God.
Jesus Christ. I cringed at myself. Is there anything that you're looking forward to playing, whether it's something that is coming out or is out and you just haven't gotten to it yet?
I'm really looking forward to playing Momodora Moonlit Farewell, which is, I believe, the final entry in the Momodora series. It's a really great little indie series that is, I would describe the most popular one, which is Momodora Reverie Under the Moonlight, as what if Dark Souls was a 2D platformer, was about
Hollow Knight,
a cute girl that could turn into a cat.
Not quite Hollow Knight, that last part, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a little Hollow Knight with incredible graphics and really fluid feeling combat.
Okay.
And I'm very excited for this. I believe it just came out recently, this final game in the series.
Hell yeah.
Rift of the Necrodancer I don't think it's come out quite yet, but it is a sequel to probably my most played game of all time, Crypt of the Necrodancer.
Yeah.
Which I have. That's gonna be 459 hours in, I think.
Jesus. The demo's out, but the game isn't out yet.
That's it. Yeah. So I'm very excited to get my hands on that, and I'm sure that I will put it right down and go back to playing Crypt of the Necrodancer eventually.
Yeah, I've never played OG Crypts, but I have played the Zelda spin-off of it, and I quite love that.
That one is really fun too.
Yeah, that's what you
And
want a Zelda game to be.
I just want them all to be rhythm games.
There you go. Rhythm grid games.
Mhm.
There you go.
And probably the last one that I'm really looking forward to right now is The Last Days of Friendship Valley, which I don't know a ton about, but I've heard it described as like Disco Elysium meets My Little Pony meets Deck Builder, and the pitch really captures me.
Friendship is solidarity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good to know. I have not heard of that one, so I'm going to, make a note of that. I do love a little RPG. Yeah, but before we talk about today's game and take it to the underground, tell us about a few more games that mean a lot to you that you maybe haven't shouted out yet.
Sure. I mentioned Crypt of the Necrodancer, but that really is just like my probably in my top 3 games of all time. That and like any game that you can really feel like you're perfecting over time. I like playing Katana Zero recently for that matter.
Oh,
It makes me feel just so good to be able to play a game quicker and more efficiently. And I think the sort of roguelike aspects and rhythm game aspects of Crypt of the Necrodancer really just hold it up for me. The Mega Man series, I don't think I've talked about. The Mega Man series, pretty much all the games really had like a big impact on me. I'd had a little project for a while that I got like halfway through where I was going to play every single Mega Man game ever released. And let me tell you, there are some stinkers in there. Mega Man Soccer is not that fun.
I didn't know that existed.
Yeah, no, for good reason. But like games in there are all so varied. The character designs are always so fun, and I think that Mega Man has such a beating heart that I wish was still that I wish was not like cryogenically frozen or whatever has happened to it today.
Yeah, I mean, I love Mega Man. I love him aesthetically. I love the series. I mean, I was a kid who, my older brothers had the Mega Man Legends games, and that aesthetic is just burned into my brain forever as like my platonic ideal of what a game should look like, even if the game feels a little off because it was, a 3D world with a D-pad. But I have such an attachment to Mega Man that has been punished basically every year since I've been able to independently buy video games. I bought a Nintendo 3DS on launch day because I was super stoked on getting to play that Mega Man Legends 3 demo, which never got released
Oh,
and was
poor
canceled.
Keifer.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm one of the suckers that bought a 3DS at launch for Mega Man. And then Marvel vs. Capcom 3 had also come out around that time, and guess who was not in it? It's like they were trying to AstroTurf Mega Man there for a few years. I don't know what was up with that.
Absolutely. It's the Mega Man fans, they know nothing but suffering nowadays. It's sad to say.
Zero's cool. I get it. But like him over Mega Man in Marvel 3, okay. Anyway, I have a pitch for a Magical Girl Mega Man anime.
Yes.
Unfortunately, nobody's picking up the phone.
I listen, Kiefer. You call me anytime. I'll listen to you talk about that for hours.
Yeah.
Apart from Mega Man, though, I think it's like it's Metroid is a big one I've gotten into. I love those games, and probably the game that is like has had the biggest impact on me, maybe positively and negatively, that I just haven't mentioned here at all is Bang Dream Girls Band Party.
Bang Girls Band. Okay, there we go. Sorry, continue.
Yeah, which is another like mobile rhythm game, another mobile gotcha rhythm game that I played for I believe 4 years straight, like from release or at least month of release, and I played it every single day.
Wow.
And I never broke my streak. I played all the songs. I got really good at tapping those buttons as they came through. I became very familiar with all the characters. And then one day I moved across the country and broke my streak. And I was like, do I need to play a video game every day? Is this healthy for me?
As a now lapsed Marvel Snap player, the answer is no, you don't. Yeah, no, I totally get like falling into the rhythm, so to speak, of mobile gaming. I also just now looked up Bang Dream's Wikipedia page, and it's very funny to see a headline that says Morphonica's debut and COVID-19 as part of the lore.
Yeah. Oh, Morphonica. I could talk about Morphonica for hours, but that's not the podcast this is.
I mean, we go on tangents all the time. If you want to give a minute to Morphonica, do whatever you'd like.
It's so brilliant to just like create an. First of all, they're just like, all right, we have like 6 units in the game. That's already like 30 characters, but we're gonna add in a 7th group, and they're like a fucking rock band with where one of the main instruments is the violin, and they just have this sick ass music released with this awesome music video.
And they caused COVID. So
And they caused COVID-19, unfortunately.
yeah, I'm just saying, yep, it seems like January 2020 this was announced, and then March happened.
Yeah, so Morphonica unfortunately canceled for that reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bang Dream, the music's good, the characters are good. I can't pick it back up or I will be sucked into a hole.
Yeah, until Morphonica is disbanded, Higurashi will remain free. As I understand it. So, any other games that mean a lot to you?
I think that might be all of the. I don't think there are any other games that mean anything to me in the world now.
You hate them all. Okay, great. Also, Capcom, if you won't pick up the phone for my Mega Man anime pitch idea, at least hear me out for like, it's a slam dunk if you just do a search action style Mega Man game. You know, like Metroid, you know, people love Metroid. That's a person with an arm for a gun. If you just want to make a Metroid style Mega Man game, just pick up the phone. Answer me. I got ideas. Mega Man, we can do something with them.
Super Smash Bros. Sorry, I let it percolate my brain for a minute. I've played so much Super Smash Bros.
You a Mega Man?
No, actually, I like playing as Zelda.
Yeah, cool.
But I really became around. I think it was Switch Smash. I sort of started dedicating myself to like, what if I really, like I said before, I love anything that can be like competitive and where you can really start leaning into like developing the skill of it. And so Smash Bros really called to me. I played all the games previous to it. That's the first time I started going to like competitive scenes and going to tournaments, and that really helped me sort of like, I don't know, break out of my shell a little bit, you know?
Yeah. No, I appreciate you telling me about that. Is there any other like in-person events that you do that are video game related, or is it just Smash Brothers and also tabletop?
Mostly those two. There is a local around me that does like Guilty Gear, which I tried going to. That was a lot of fun. It was when I went to it, it was just sort of growing, and I'm really happy to see that they've like continued to grow and they like sort of expanded out. They do a little we've a little bit of Under Night In-Birth, a little bit of Street Fighter, but when it comes to anything that's not Smash Bros, I pick up the controller, I fiddle around with the buttons for a minute. I use the most fundamental of fundamentals, and then maybe I survive for a few seconds in a round, and I'm like, that was fun. I'm not playing. I'm not going to be able to continue coming every week for that, but thank you.
Yeah. Anyway, I do have one question for you, considering your podcast is about the Reardon verse, as it is. There is a Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Lightning Thief video game. Now, it's based off of the movie, but it was released on a Nintendo DS. Have you ever checked this out for either content or as a curio?
I haven't. Hopefully one day I will, but until you just mentioned it, I forgot that it existed. It is a DS game, so that actually does it really does increase the amount of like, that really increases the percentage chance that I will play it. Looking at it now, it looks like garbage, just
Oh yeah,
pure
it looks like visual dog
nonsense.
shit. Yeah, but hey, I mean, like it is an RPG, I think, based on what I'm looking at.
It looks like it's vaguely based on. There was this like Greek myth themed DS RPG that I used to play. That was like Glory of Heracles or something. It looks vaguely similar to that. I don't know. I think it will have to be content eventually. The Unwise Girls Let's Play.
Let's suffer through Percy Jackson and the Olympians. Yeah, no, this game looks like doo-doo dog shit, Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the Lightning Thief, the video game. But it exists, and it is on the DS, and it appears to be an RPG, which if I were to develop a Percy Jackson game based on what I remember from being in 8th grade, was probably how I'd do it too.
Probably, yeah, that makes sense.
It seems like a 13-year-old developed this game. No offense to the developers. I understand that this isn't what you wanted to do, and that you were probably on a time crunch to make this. Yeah, no, unfortunately, it just looks like doo-doo. How would you make a Percy Jackson game?
So I've spent a lot of time thinking about this because I've spent a lot of time thinking about the series. I think that any good Percy Jackson game will be based largely around really like sort of simulation, like camp building mechanics. It's most of the game is spent at home at Camp Half Blood, training units and getting characters to interact with each other. I'm realizing that maybe I'm just describing Fire Emblem a little bit.
Yeah.
And that is a lot of what I want, just like the sort of modern day, like if Percy Jackson video game could be like Fire Emblem Three Houses.
Percy Jackson and the Medallion of the Flame, you could call it.
Yeah, that's something. Um, but instead of like a grid-based sort of tactical thing, whenever you got into the open world, it would be like a Shadow of the Colossus. I think that'd be perfect.
Sure. My gut instinct would be like Hades. You know Hades? You guys know Hades? That you have the life sim thing, which if you're using roguelike examples like Cult of the Lamb, but obviously instead of cult stuff, you're maintaining Camp Half Blood or whatever it is that they do. I'm going off of knowledge from 10 years ago. Oh my God, I'm 28, 14 years ago.
Oh, time's trick.
Yeah. All right. So, yeah, I mean, you could do base building elements, like you said, and then expanding it to some sort of action-oriented gameplay a la Hades, or whatever you'd like. I think you would have a better sense of how to develop this game. I think that the Fire Emblem thing is pretty inspired too, because I remember classes, like if you have a son of whatever, that's a class. And if you have specific weapons that go with each class.
Yeah, you got the fucking son of Demeter gets a bonus to, I don't know, agriculture, which for some reason is a stat in this game.
Mm-hmm.
And, the daughter of Hades, you can, they can train together and create unique stats. There's something to it.
It's a series that's basically custom built to have OCs too. So, I mean, you select a character and you build your, custom character, and that person can be the son of whoever, and then a class of this, and what is your neurodivergence?
Exactly.
That last part was being a bit flippant, but I do actually enjoy how ADHD is treated as a superpower, as in the Percy Jackson books.
It's sick. Yeah, those books are legitimately pretty good. Sort of a legitimately pretty good reading of the way that society thinks about disability in relation to things like schooling and support of children.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's one of those things that if an author was even 2% less sensitive, it would be the most horrific shit in the world. I think about the Shane Black 2018 Predator movie, where autism is the weakness of the predator.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and I love Shane Black movies generally, but what the fuck was that? Yeah, but no, the Percy Jackson thing really approaches it sensitively, because as I understood it, his children have ADHD, and he was trying to make it seem like a cool thing to have, which is very nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as somebody who found out in his adulthood that he had ADHD, I really appreciate that in retrospect. I was like, why do I relate to this? I don't know. I'll figure out in 10 years.
It's one of those sort of sleeper cell things, right?
Yeah.
The ADHD gets implanted in you, and eventually you understand.
Right. Like how you became a lesbian because of rhythm games or whatever, right?
Yeah. Something like that.
Yeah. Now that we've gotten to know you and your taste, Jacqueline, thank you so much for going on this journey with me to talk about your history of video games. Let's talk about the game that you picked. Let's take it to the underground.
Underground. Yeah, we're gonna do it all day. Yo, what you looking at, man? Yo, come on. I'm the king of the underground. 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 I'm the king of the underground. Underground.
Tony Hawk's Underground, often abbreviated as Thug, is a skateboarding video game developed by Neversoft and published by Activision, now known as Activision Blizzard, a Microsoft subsidiary. This was the fifth Tony Hawk game developed by Neversoft, who had developed the previous four Tony Hawk Pro Skater video games. Neversoft developed a new Tony Hawk video game every year for 9 years, starting in 1999 with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater and ending with Tony Hawk's Proving Ground in 2007. From 2007 through 2010, Neversoft was assigned by Activision to develop the Guitar Hero series, starting with Guitar Hero 3 Legends of Rock. By 2014, Activision would merge Neversoft with other Activision subsidiary Infinity Ward, making them defunct. Per our earlier conversation about how Activision just keeps consolidating and moving all these people around to doing nothing, right? So unfortunately, Neversoft no longer exists, but man, what a legacy they left behind, including this video game we'll be talking about today. So let's talk about how Neversoft approached the development of Tony Hawk's Underground. With a new name, because this was the year after Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, Neversoft set out to differentiate this Tony Hawk experience and make the series bigger than ever. Quite literally, in the sense that Underground's levels were significantly bigger than the levels in the Pro Skater series. These levels, based on real-world locations, were expanded until it created performance issues, and then they were shrunk slightly to ensure that these levels were as large as possible while still running consistently. Neversoft designers traveled to the locales, ranging from American locations like New Jersey, New York, Tampa, San Diego, and Honolulu, to foreign countries like Canada, Russia, and Australia. They took pictures and videos as references. The Jersey level, for example, was based on one of the artist's neighborhoods where he had grown up as a young skater himself. The new name, Tony Hawk's Underground, was also part of a mission statement to make it easier for newcomers to get into these games, adding 4 difficulty settings to the game so both newcomers and veterans could have a gratifying experience. Tony Hawk's Underground expands on the gameplay of the Pro Skater series by adding a wealth of new mechanics and features such as wall plants and wall pushes, hip transfers and acid drops, double tap grind tricks, pressure flips, and so on. This game also introduced face mapping for your custom character, allowing you to replace the face texture with another image. Intentionally, it's supposed to be your face, but people can just take an image and just map it onto the face and create whatever horrifying things you'd like to make. See Monster Factory for more information. The most significant additions, however, were the ability to get off your board and walk around. It is also the first time in the series that you can drive vehicles. Getting off your board to walk around allows you to climb and access certain areas, but most critically, you can get off your board mid-combo and get back on your board within a narrow time limit to continue your combo. This makes it easier than ever to land complicated high-point combos and reflects the real-life nature of skateboarding, where bailing and adjusting are critical to your safety. This is also the first Tony Hawk game with a narrative story mode. In this game's story mode, your custom skater lives in New Jersey with their friend Eric Sparrow. The two of you dream of leaving your hometown to become professional skateboarders. When they hear that Chad Muska is doing a demo in their neighborhood, you attempt to impress him and gain his attention by performing tricks as he rides around town. Chad, who is in fact impressed, gives you his skateboard and tells you to seek out a sponsorship from a local skate shop and then immediately leaves. The player then goes to Stacy Peralta's skate shop, who agrees to give him a sponsorship if he can film something original and in a spot that isn't local, because he's seen those spots too many times. Serendipitously, your friend Eric Sparrow needs to flee town after lighting the local drug dealer's car on fire, and the two of you board a train to Manhattan in New York City. Shenanigans ensue. One thing I forgot to mention is, since this is part of the Tony Hawk series, the skaters that you encounter are all real people. So yeah, you are impressing Chad Muska, as played by Chad Muska, and you are trying to get a sponsorship from the real-life Stacy Peralta. And of course, you are going to run into the real Bam Margera. So that is another significant part of this game's story. Again, shenanigans ensue. Tony Hawk's Underground was released in North America on October 27th, 2003. Other games released in 2003 include Beyond Good and Evil, Call of Duty, Grand Theft Auto Vice City, Jak 2, Max Payne 2, The Fall of Max Payne, NBA Street Volume 2, Prince of Persia, Sands of Time, SSX 3, Tiger Woods PGA Tour 2004, Beautiful Joe, Star Wars, Knights of the Old Republic, which I previously covered on the show with Luke from the We're Not So Different podcast, as well as The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, which I previously covered with Hamish Steele. It's a great year for video games, but I also want to talk about the music of 2003 very quickly, because this is a very music-heavy game. 78 tracks in Tony Hawk's Underground. I wanted to shout out the top 5 songs in the US Billboard 100 during the week of October 25th, 2003, the week this game came out. Number 5 is Damn by Young Bloods featuring Lil Jon. Number 4, Stand Up with Ludacris featuring Shauna. Number 3, Shake a Tail Feather, Nelly. Number 2, Get Low with Lil Jon, once again, with the East Side Boys and the Yin Yang Twins. Huge week for A-Town. And number 1, Baby Boy by Beyonce featuring Sean Paul.
A momentous sort of era for music.
Oh, yeah. And fuck it. Why not do the box office top 5 for October 25th, 2003? Why not? This is October 25th, 2003. It's almost Halloween. We're in the early weeks of the Oscar season. Number 1 at the box office, we got Scary Movie 3, directed by David Zucker.
Yeah.
Yeah. Starring Anna Faris, grossing $19 million on its opening weekend. How do you feel about Scary Movie as a horror fan?
It's bad. I don't like it.
It's mostly misses, but there are a few good jokes in the first movie.
Yeah, it's a classic, I suppose. It's I'm not gonna turn away Scary Movie, but Not the biggest fan.
No, I mean, I watched the first one and I was just like, oh, it's so juvenile. But number 2, we got the 2003 Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake directed by Marcus Nispel and starring Jessica Biel. I don't know if there's any like prevailing, reassessment on this one, but I remember people just not liking this one.
Yeah, that seems right.
Yeah. Number 3, we got Radio, directed by Michael Tollin and starring Cuba Gooding Jr. Watched this in my health class in 6th grade for some reason. Bad movie. Tropic Thunder parodied this with a simple Jack plotline. Don't bother. Number 4, A Runaway Jury, directed by Gary Fleder and starring Gene Hackman in one of his last movie roles ever. And number 5 was Mystic River, directed by Clint Eastwood, nominated for 6 Academy Awards. 1, 2, Sean Penn for Best Actor and Tim Robbins for Best Supporting Actor. Fucking love Tim Robbins. But yeah, that's the top 5 in movies, if anybody was curious about that.
And I think it's actually really important that you shout those movies out because this is a movies ass game.
It is a movies ass game, and this is a 2003 ass game. So it's important to get an idea of like what the culture was like beyond skating. It's almost like a period piece now playing this in 2024.
It really is. And I think that's part of the strength, right?
Yeah, like in a way it kind of endures because it's just sort of encased in amber and representative of this time. What ultimately made you decide on Tony Hawk's Underground to talk about out of any video game?
I just have such a personal connection to it on so many levels. When I think of like games that I played with family members from the time or games that I really could just replay when I was like younger that I can still perfectly like imagine in my brain, and that I think I sort of have the same vibe that games like Crypt of the Necrodancer have for me today, where I just like replay them over and over again. Tony Hawk's Underground is like the one that is the most emblematic of that.
Yeah, I mean, I had the original 2 like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater games in my house, and my brothers would play various sports games like the SSX games, or one of my older brothers was really into like the NBA games at the time. But I remember just liking those Tony Hawk games the most because they, like besides the music part of it, it's just like there's just like one less strategy in the way that you have to like do things in like basketball, but also just kind of it felt good to move around in those games, and that movement was very important to me.
Yeah, that's big. The movement is great.
Yeah, but no, this is definitely a game that you can play with other people and also sort of like do your own thing. What is your relationship with like the Tony Hawk video games in general?
I have played one Pro Skater game, which was Pro Skater 4, which I think came out maybe the same year.
Last year, yeah. It was 2002.
Yeah. For me, the rest of it was all the like underground, what I consider sort of the underground trilogy, with Underground 2 and American Wasteland, which is basically Underground 3 to me. And I loved the story, right? I loved the narratives, and I loved how, like you said, how moving feels, how you're able to just get off the board. It took me a while to get to Pro Skater 4 because of like you can't get off of the board. What is this bullshit? But eventually I did, and I really enjoyed that one too.
Yeah, but you said you've also played 2 in American Wasteland as well.
Yeah, I have. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a couple of other Tony Hawk games that I've played, but I'll get to them in the next segment here. This is a game that you said means a lot to you and like connects you with like, the people of your life at the time. Did you ever skateboard in real life?
I didn't. No, I was never a skateboarder, not as a kid, not as a teenager. And I always wanted to, right? I always thought it just looked like the sickest shit in the world.
It is.
And then we started talking about doing an episode, and Tony Hawk's Underground became the topic of conversation. And I was like, you know what? I should go out and buy a fucking skateboard. And so actually knowing that I was going to come onto this podcast, I bought a skateboard a while ago, and I started learning how.
Really?
Yeah. Not good at it yet.
Mm-hmm.
I can stay on the board for the most part while it's still, and I can go a little bit of a distance without falling off. But yeah, I have kind of fallen back in love with not just like the culture around skateboarding, like skate videos and stuff like that, but also just I'm finally doing the damn thing.
I mean, congratulations. I did not expect you to do that. That's so fucking cool that you are falling back into this thing and you got a skateboard, that's actually genuinely incredible.
It's sick. I select and start changes lives.
I select and starts for the people. You see, I'm an influencer. I have influenced somebody. Let the record show.
Let the record show.
Let the
See,
record
but we're
show.
skateboarders, so we don't listen to any record.
Yeah. No, you couldn't buy me. You can't buy me. Capcom pick up the phone, but you can't buy me. That's genuinely wonderful. So, how old were you when you first started playing this game?
I was probably,
Like, how did you encounter this game? How did it end up in your life?
I think it was my older brother. My older brother, my oldest brother is a lot older than me, like 15 or 20 years older. And so he had the game, and when I went over to his house, I believe he had it on PlayStation 2, and I would play it there. It was just sort of a way that I would connect with him, and like he was definitely like a skater type guy, like rode bikes, rode skateboards, smoked a lot of weed. Now that I can identify what that mysterious smell was in his house, that was sort of how I discovered the game. I was like, I love this shit. I want to play more. Convince my parents to buy it for me, and that was how it all started.
Oh, hell yeah. I have older brothers too. They're 8 and 9 years older than me, and I definitely relate to, especially when I was like a teenager, I would go over to my older brother's apartment and hang out there during the summertime, and just because he would let me do whatever I wanted while he went to work.
Yeah.
But no, that's very sweet and touching that you had that space to sort of get to experience stuff like this. I want to go into the next segment, No Country for Old Games. But before I do that, I have to ask, do you think that when Tony Hawk dies, the headline is going to be Tony Hawk's Underground?
There's gonna be, see, the glory of like the modern way that news spreads is that there's going to be one article that does say that, and they are going to change it and like the next day, but it's gonna be there for at least a few hours. And so I hope to see it. I think he would like that.
I hope so. I hope that he likes that because like my big concern with things, right, is like when somebody who is well liked dies, but is like famous, right? It's hard for people to not reduce them to like the parasocial. Like I knew this guy. I knew, Bob Ross as the painter, or I knew, Mr. Rogers as the TV guy. And it sucks sometimes when you die that you're associated with your job, but that's also how millions of people know you. And I'm sure Tony Hawk would appreciate being recognized in public properly.
Yeah. It's better than like a headline that's like some guy who looks kind of like Tony Hawk dies. Wonder who that was.
He seems like a chill dude. I'm sure he would be totally fine with a headline like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm sure that I don't know if they're going to put it on his gravestone, but I'm sure that the headline, at least as a headline, that'd be great.
And I mean, talking, I guess, for half a second, like Tony Hawk is gonna have such a fucking like important legacy even after he's dead. Like he obviously like done a million things for skateboarding, and that pretty cool guy.
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, I've heard that he is just a very magnanimous, very sweet person, quiet, chill, like normal, as normal as a person can be, and also be ridiculously famous. Yeah, no, I mean, it's a very important fold to the story of these games and how they are sort of tied to the mainstreaming of skateboarding as a sport. Like, I mean, obviously, like there was the X Games and everything like that, and Tony Hawk was part of the board of people at the X Games that made like skateboarding accurately represent it as part of the culture and everything like that. But this game series introduced millions of people to skateboarding, and it like brought a whole new audience to skating. And those games were trying to be inclusive of people that weren't just white dudes in the mainstream by having girl and non-white players in them. Skateboarding's always been associated with like countercultural things, and it's good that like, Tony Hawk is definitely like a super mainstream figure and everything like that. And like there is definitely like advertisements and stuff in these games. I'm not saying like it is far left, although it is very anti-cop, strangely. No, this game is like inextricably linked with like the mainstreaming of skateboarding. It got so many people into skateboarding, and like the growth of the video game industry in the Tony Hawk series and the rise and fall of the Tony Hawk series is like very much like running in tandem with this series. It's a very important franchise.
Yeah, absolutely. It's indicative and a part of that larger shift, and I think it's really interesting to analyze it within that framework.
Yeah. A documentary came out a few years ago in like 2020 called Pretending I'm a Superman, which is a story about how the Tony Hawk Pro Skater games came about. It's not a great documentary. It's got like a Wikipedia article syndrome all over it. They literally have a screenshot of a Wikipedia article at one point during the documentary. I think that's not great, but it is pretty informative. And I would love a more detailed exploration of like the actual development of these games, because they got a lot of great interviews from like the skaters and everything, and like their personal perceptions of skateboarding before, during, and after this game had come out, and how it literally changed lives and like, you know, gave people livelihoods and made like skateboarding like this huge thing. But I do just wish like it was more informative, because there is good little bits like that in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of skaters talk about how like they're still making, like, they make money off of like appearances in these things.
Yeah, I mean, like even the people who were like featured on the soundtrack, their lives were changed by these games and being featured on a Tony Hawk soundtrack. It was one of these things where it's like, this is a coveted thing to be in. And like gaming was still in like a place where it wasn't like TV and movies where like you're selling out and it's like a rite of passage for boarders. I mean, that's tremendous. And it's, I don't know, this game and like the Tony Hawk series is like so interesting and strange in that way, where it is coveted and beloved and just seen differently from other like media and like this kind of culture.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But let's move away from that and talk about how people can play such a monumental game like Tony Hawk's Underground in a segment that I like to do every episode called No Country for Old Games. So you're familiar with the show, Jacqueline. You know how video game preservation means a great deal to me, because I believe that video games are an art form and create experiences that leave some kind of impact on the people who play them. That's why you picked today's game to talk about. Unfortunately, just because something means a lot to you and me doesn't mean it means something to the publishers who have historically struggled with keeping older games available on modern hardware. As time goes on, games that were once easily readily available to purchase and play become more and more difficult to acquire as a consumer. So in this segment, we are going to rate Tony Hawk's Underground on a scale of A to R. It's obviously an expression of frustration and how hard it is to acquire a game, and not me covertly advocating for piracy, which is illegal. And the Tony Hawk's Underground series famously is about upholding the law. You don't do criminal acts in this game whatsoever. What are you talking about?
That's right. Don't break the law. Come on.
Don't break the law. Don't break the law. There's no laws broken in this game once.
Thanks for being the cop's errand boy and getting me out of jail. Time for a little payback. Those pigs work for Mayor Jed, and he's running for re-election. Let's make sure he doesn't win. Grind down the Jed signs. Ooh, Mayor Jed's pissed! He sent every cop in Florida after you. It also doesn't help that I borrowed this police car. Let's lose the cops and ditch the car.
Tony Hawk's Underground released in North America on October 27, 2003 for Game Boy Advance, GameCube, PlayStation 2, and Xbox. It was released in Europe on November 21st that same year. We are talking, of course, about the flagship console version, not the Game Boy Advance version, which is a different game from the one on consoles, obviously. A version of the game made specifically for mobile phones was developed by Jamdat and released in North America on November 20th, 2003. And while Neversoft developed the console versions of the game, Vicarious Visions, a developer who primarily made handheld versions of Activision-published console releases, developed the Game Boy Advance version. Canadian developer Beenox would develop the Windows port based off of the Xbox version of the game. This version, near as I can tell based on my research, was never officially released in the United States, but it was released in Australia and New Zealand in 2004. Beenox would, of course, go on to be acquired by Activision in 2005. There's a specter of Activision all over this episode. Vicarious Visions, who developed the Game Boy Advance port, would continue to develop GBA and Nintendo DS versions of Tony Hawk games, as well as the very good Tony Hawk's American Skateland, which was a companion title to Tony Hawk's American Wasteland, which you consider to be the third part of the Underground trilogy, Jacqueline. I never played American Wasteland, but I did play American Skateland, and I loved the shit out of that game. Vicarious Visions would go on to develop the also incredible 2020's Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2 remake, which would be a huge critical and financial success, becoming the fastest-selling game in the Tony Hawk series. It would also be the last game Vicarious Visions would solo develop before Activision would move them to Blizzard as Blizzard Albany, where they now assist on developing Diablo titles. Fortunately, however, these workers at what's now Blizzard Albany have advocated for themselves, and their quality assurance team successfully won a union bid in 2022. They were the second studio to ever unionize at Activision Blizzard. Raven Software was the first, a studio which we will talk about very soon on this show. But hey, congratulations to the people at what is now Blizzard Albany. Congratulations on unionizing. That was a bit of a tangent, but a necessary one in my opinion, because Tony Hawk is one of those franchises you can use to sort of track the history of video games, as we just mentioned, and Activision in particular as a publisher. And Neversoft no longer exists. Vicarious Visions has been rebranded and repurposed. These were both decisions made by Activision. Their dissolution and evolution and change and repurposing into this current form was not their decision.
Yeah. It's Tony Hawk is a very specific thing where you can absolutely just like track all that. The good, you get a lot of the good and the bad in that. Like, hell yeah, unionizing. Oh no, everything's folding. It's a combination of things for sure.
Yeah. There's just like this curse around like every Tony Hawk developer under Activision. After Neversoft went on to develop the Guitar Hero games, they handed the Tony Hawk stuff to another. They handed it to Robomoto, who developed the post Neversoft games. So like Tony Hawk's Ride, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, Tony Hawk Pro Skater HD, Tony Hawk Shred, the ones that people don't like.
Yeah.
That was all Robomoto, and they are also now defunct as of 2016. There's just like a curse where like everything that's ever made a Tony Hawk game no longer exists. It's very strange.
It's sad. It's sad. It's a cursed little franchise, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, Vicarious Visions was apparently ready to start developing a Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3 and 4 remake, but that was scrapped because they were folded into Blizzard Albany. That's a huge loss. I would have loved to play that, and I don't know if that's ever going to be possible now, especially since it's so hard to get all the licenses and everything involved with that, which brings us back to the actual discussion of preservation here. The short version is Tony Hawk's Underground cannot be played today, not on modern consoles at least. It cannot be purchased through traditional means or even in a digital storefront like Steam. The Xbox version of this game is one of the 462 Xbox games that are backwards compatible with Xbox 360, but it is not backwards compatible with Xbox One or Series X or S, stupid console name. There are reasons for this, of course, like namely, there's so much licensing and like permissions that you have to get, and I imagine all those licenses have expired. There was actually a license to develop Tony Hawk games with Activision that expired in 2015, which made the remake in 2020 a miracle, because it's like you had to get all those like skaters permissions to put everything in there. You have to pay for the music rights of everything. And like I said, there's a lot of music in this game. It has the biggest soundtrack of any Tony Hawk game.
Oh yeah.
Like almost 80 songs on it, and uses so many people's likeness and voice and everything like that. It would be a huge monetary challenge and logistical challenge to continue to renew those rights. But as the remake in 2020 demonstrated, it is still possible for that to happen. So while it is unfortunate that this game is not readily available, I do understand it on a level, but this is a game that does deserve to be preserved because it's a game that clearly means a lot to you, and it is a game that I fell in love with playing for the first time making this episode.
Incredible.
Yeah, I'm comfortable labeling this game an ARG. It is fully an ARG. And it's in the ether. You're going to have to sail the high seas to even find a copy of this thing. How do you play this game, Jacqueline?
Well, if I had sadly been able to play it in the stretch coming up to this episode, I would have probably had to go home and get my GameCube and just play it there. Instead, I decided to try out the GBA version, which is not the same game at all, as I ended up finding out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was fun for a few minutes. And then I thought, you know what? I've played this game so many times, I can probably just lie back and like close my eyes and imagine playing it for an hour, and the experience will have been about the same. I'm
just imagining you laying on your couch and screaming, Benihana.
do it. You just like do a kickflip, like Christ there. Yeah, this is what I was doing.
Yeah, you're just like screaming like lyrics to Viva la Revolution.
This is not unlike what I was doing. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I'm glad that you, in addition to you getting into skateboarding, you also checked out a different version of the game. You definitely did your homework on this one.
It's, the select and start guest. I've been saying it for too long. Have it too good. You need to start putting more requirements on them.
Oh man, alienating the other guests on the show who definitely listen to this. So hey, I'm sorry, everybody. You heard her. But hey, look, it's a great game. I agree that it is a part of like gaming history. It was certainly a challenge to try and find this game. Luckily, there's a little website called myabandonware.com that I hear about. And if you type into the game search Tony Hawk's Underground, you are likely to find a Windows version of the game that even has repack data in there that makes it easy to run on modern PCs. And if you need to, they even provide a link for mods, allegedly, that, you know, give bug fixes and enhancements that make it even easier to play on PC. Certainly that is an option, you know, for people. I'm just saying it's only 816 megabytes to play pure Kino over here. I'm just saying, like, that may have or may not have been how I played this game.
You know, that's if that may or may not have been how you played it, I think that may or may not have been the best choice.
If that's how I did it, I'm sure I had a great time doing it. It was very, very easy to download and play, I think, maybe. Who's to say? Just saying, there are ways out there to experience a game like this if you haven't before and don't have a copy. Myabandonware.com, I think, is what that website's called. So thank you, maybe, to that website.
No promises, of course. No promises on this thank you, but theoretically, thank you.
Yeah, if that website is real, myabandonware.com, I am super grateful if it exists.
Yeah, from an academic perspective, we have to admit that if myabandonware.com exists, then it is doing a good service.
If Tony Hawk's Underground is downloaded on my computer and nobody could have made money off of it, was it really ever stolen?
Oh, I see you say that now, but as soon as you hit that button, that theoretically the $50 did come out of a pocket of a CEO.
They're crying themselves to sleep thinking of all the people who didn't pay $50 to play as Gene Simmons on a skateboard. I'm sure that's just like really like getting to them.
That's right.
Absolutely. The point is, this game should be readily available to people who want to play it. It's a great fucking game, guys. Every time I play a Tony Hawk's game that's good, I just like, it feels like life is so good. Life's so fucking good. And people seem to agree. The PlayStation 2 version of this game holds a 90 out of 100 on the review aggregation website Metacritic. The GameCube version has an 89 out of 100. And it got a lot of recognition and accolades at the time. It won Best Sports Game at the 2003 Game Critic Awards. The 2004 MTV Music Video Awards introduced Best Video Game Soundtrack as a category. And Tony Hawk's Underground won it that year it was introduced. Great game. People loved it. People loved the soundtrack. Critics loved it. It sold well. But we're not talking about the money this game put in people's pockets. We're not talking about the awards it won. We're talking about what this game means to somebody who played it. So let's get into it, Jacqueline.
Hey, Jane.
Hey, Jacqueline.
Do you think the 2011 Egyptian revolution was caused by the chaos god Apophis?
I think that's...
How about the American Civil War and its ties to Greco-Roman conflict?
I think that's underselling the economic concern of slavery.
Do you think centaurs just piss where they stand?
Jacqueline, no offense, but I think there's something deeply wrong with you.
It's not me, it's actually Rick Riordan, author of the Percy Jackson series.
So you're saying that if you do a deep analysis of this incredibly popular and purportedly progressive, though overall well-intentioned author's works, you can uncover the deep rot behind American liberalism and capitalism as a whole?
Yeah.
Okay, I guess we could do a podcast about that.
And we can make sure to take time each episode to find the incontrovertible proof that his characters are not cishet, because Rick Riordan is not the boss of us.
Listen to Unwise Girls every Friday, brought to you by the Moonshot Network.
What do you like about this game, and what does it do that you wish more video games would do?
I want more video games that are just like unabashedly themselves like this game is. I don't care if it's janky. I like that it's janky. I don't care about like how it looks a little garbage. I don't care how not all the songs are that great. I don't care if the voice acting's bad. I need games that care about a theme, games that really care about inspiring a mood. And this is like a top tier example of that. To me, Tony Hawk's Underground is so representative of like what skateboarding culture feels like, or like really captures that for an audience, like you said, a more mainstream audience, and lets people engage in something that may not be as, I guess, airbrushed, right? Tony Hawk's Underground, and it's not just that, but it also feels fucking good to play. It's feels so good to just like land an incredible series of tricks. The level design is so great. They all feel so unique, and it's funny too. The story is pretty good except when it's bad.
Yeah. This game is super charming and sincere, like it is definitely a game that has like 2003 edge to it, and that crust certainly has not aged the best in a lot of ways, but I do think the people who made it cared. The voice acting isn't great, but that's because they're using the actual skaters that are being visually represented here, and they all contributed to the game in some way with like them giving feedback about like, oh, here's what I would do if I was in Moscow. You know what I mean? They were active participants in the development of this game in one way or another. They came up with like, oh, if I was, giving a random skater a mission, I guess this is what I would do in that situation. You talked about the jankiness of it, and I was going to like, like the game feels fucking great to play, and you even said that, but like I was going to say like, nuh-uh, and then like, yeah, actually, no, there are a few things about the game that are janky, which we'll get to when we're being a bit more critical about the game. But no, this game is great, very well researched. I mean, they went to Moscow for real to make sure that they were making a good Moscow skating level. They didn't have to do that. Certainly, like the Moscow level is like weird in like how you have to leave it in the story mode by basically doing covert ops for Russians. But like it's silly, it's fun, it's just having a good time. It's not trying to make you overthink anything.
Yeah, it's skater dedication.
Mm-hmm. Skating is a ridiculous act. It is like basically magic, and it attracts a lot of like very interesting and wild characters, and all these personalities coming to life and introducing themselves to you in your home is something that is basically invaluable, especially pre-YouTube. Like this is like really ahead of its time in terms of like, I mean, this whole series is in general, but like giving somebody a primer and allows you to participate in like this culture in a very accessible way.
Right, because one of the most important ways that skating gets passed around is through skate videos, right?
Yeah.
And this game is basically just one long skate video plus some actual ones that are thrown in there, like in the end game when you make the like team free spirit or whatever with all the big skaters.
Yeah, I mean, it's a teaching tool. It's like telling you what the brands are, who are part of these brands. Tony Hawk is like Birdhouse is Tony Hawk's brand. You can be part of Zero if you want to be. Like you watch the skate videos and like you can be like, and you pick after watching the skate videos which one you want to be in based on your own personal taste. It's like a power fantasy to an extent, but it is also like dedication to the craft.
Yeah, and that's what like part of what makes it just so stellar for me is not a lot of games just have, all right, we're cutting away to a real life video.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's so unique. This game is really unique in that way. And I think that like providing that sort of thing just makes Tony Hawk's Underground all the better.
This is so early in like the history of video games when they're doing this stuff and having real life people in it and being like a self-insert into this world and doing it in a way that is absolutely corny, but it is like it plays so well and it wants you to be part of that world, and you feel immersed in it in like the very goofy way of like, oh yeah, I'm, doing grinds on Russian tanks right now, and Bam Margera is talking about how he wants to, steal and, operate a tank and everything like that.
Yeah.
I saw Bam say that to my character. Wow. I love Jackass.
Oh, this game is so Jackass.
Yeah, I know the sequel apparently is a lot more Jackass focused, but I don't know. It still blows me away anytime there's like a real person in a video game now, and like I don't know. I don't know how to describe it.
Well, that's the thing, is that it's immersing you into an open, like not an open world, but sort of a sandboxy, like a world you can explore, and it's making that world more real by making it kind of the real world.
Mm-hmm. No, it's extremely uncanny, right? Because everybody's like not talking in a naturalistic way. They're just like saying like, do a special trick by pressing these buttons here. Then like you'll impress some chicks who will want to go with us to the party.
Yeah, everyone's either like, hey, what's up? You want to go do a trick? Press A to do that trick. Or like hey man, you ride? That's real cool. I like to ride too. How about you show me your best line from this gap to that gap?
Yeah. Go do 6 of these for me, so I know that you're real.
Whoa, Mike V. I knew you were a Jersey local, but...
Hey kid, just out skating? Cool. Me too. hitting up the old neighborhood. Want a new trick to practice? Get your special meter full, then hit up a flamingo.
It's goofy, it's silly, but again, their participation in it validates the whole thing. So it becomes like, even though like they look graphically, uncanny, and they sound strange, the fact that they participated in it is the legitimacy it needs for it to like be good, I guess.
Absolutely.
I had a great time playing this. It was definitely like nostalgic, even though like I wasn't a part of skater culture, but like recognizing the names from the Tony Hawk games that I did play. It's weird to play a game that I've never played before and feel so nostalgic, but damn, this game is just very effective at cultivating a mood, and it gameplay wise, it's just aged so well.
Yeah, that is really its strength.
And eminently replayable too. I was only going to beat the story mode, but I was having such a good time with it that I kept playing. And I mean, if you continue to play the game and the game wants you to keep replaying the game, because I mean, and like I said, there's like the replay value on this thing's insane. You find secret areas, and you will find, oh shit, there are levels from Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2 in this game, and you have to find them by going in the secret areas of like 3 different levels. Holy shit. I ended up playing this game an extra few hours just because like I kept realizing like how vast the unlockables in the game were.
Yeah, plus there's literally a secret ending if you play through the game again.
Yeah. You Eric Sparrow, famous piece of shit Eric Sparrow, one of the most hated video game characters of all time. Again, I've been hearing this guy's name for years on like internet message boards and like video game forums or whatever. And it's one thing to see a picture of a smug piece of shit, but like when you actually have to like be around this guy for hours at a time, and every single level he does something that just fucks you over, and it fucks me over as the player because this is my self-insert, damn it. I hated this motherfucker. I actually like felt it. I was like, oh wow, I thought I was going to be over this. I was going to be above it. I was going in prepared knowing I was going to hate him, but like he keeps fucking me over.
They so expertly do the thing of like your shitty childhood best friend who you kind of hate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you live in a small town, in the small town of just New Jersey, and there's no one else around. Everyone else is doing bullshit. There's only one guy that likes skating. And yeah, he's an asshole, but you can skate together, and that's sick.
Yeah, I mean, like you have the same hobby, and like every skateboarding thing you'll ever watch is like if you skateboard and somebody else skateboard in your area, that's your friend automatically because it was a shared hobby, Yeah, no, like they totally cultivate that shitty childhood friend aura around this guy. Like everybody was just putting their heart and soul into making the most unlikable piece of shit ever. They did it. They made the perfect asshole with the perfect sniveling voice. Oh God. I've been derailed by like thinking about Eric Sparrow. Jesus Christ. He is the guy who like you make a joke and he says the joke louder.
Yeah.
I mean, he steals your stunt. He steals the coolest stunt in the world.
Did I miss my part?
Part? You weren't even in it. But Eric's part ruled. He did the sickest rooftop gap I've ever seen. Roof to roof in Hawaii. 40 stories up.
What the? That was my trick and my spot.
Time to introduce our newest pro, Eric Sparrow! Eric's on his way to the Moscow Invitational, and his first pro board will be coming out in 2 months.
You poached my shots. Where's my footage?
Oh, man, I couldn't bring myself to tell you. See, there was this thing at Customs.
Lying sack of... Ugh!
Hey! We go way back, so I'm gonna forget you just did that. Now listen, I got 3 parties to hit, but you better go rest up for the amateur contest tomorrow.
It makes the ending oh so satisfying.
Right.
Whether you get to outskate him and prove that you were in fact the better skater all along, or whether you get to just punch him in the face and take the tape, either way, it feels oh so sweet.
Yeah, if you beat him, because I only beat the game once, but if you beat him, he's just like a sniveling baby. He's like, you gotta rematch me, and then you like walk away self-satisfied, flipping the original tape in your hand, and then you actually finally get to watch the footage of the stunt that you did, where you are like jumping from a hotel roof over a helicopter, and it whips ass. And you, as the player, actually do that stunt, which makes it even more personal when Eric Sparrow steals it and edits the footage to look like that he did it. Which, let's talk about that for a second, because you and I have like dabbled in editing.
Mm-hmm.
That's an insane thing to be able to accomplish. Like it would, like if you're able to edit something to the degree that it looks like that you did it, you don't have to steal things.
You could just become a cool skate video editor.
Being an editor is like a big part of like Tony Hawk like did editing work to like, make a living so he could continue to skateboard. Like he's, done the work on that level. Is Eric Sparrow supposed to be like somebody making an evil name for Tony Hawk, by the way? Sparrow, Hawk? I don't know.
Oh, you know what? I think you're on the money.
Yeah. Like here's just a short, like hunched over, sniveling piece of shit versus like the famously tall and affable and chilled out Tony Hawk. I feel like they tried to like make an opposite, and that was like the thing in development.
They might be proposing a world where all skaters who have like some primeval like skatingness inside of them have a first and last name comprised of 4-letter first name and bird last name.
Yeah, like maybe everybody has like an evil skater doppelganger out there. Like the second you get on a board, another person, like there's now like you're Jacqueline Swampert. There's a Johnny Blaziken out there now.
Yeah. Yes. Johnny Blaziken is my favorite Marvel character also.
Yeah, Johnny Blaziken out there just doing things. Just a big piece of shit that's now out there because you stepped on a board.
And would never go on Select and Start.
There's a Bam Majera, and then there's a Pow Butter out there. Evil skater doppelganger. They're real. Let's investigate.
Yes,
of course. Point is, Eric Sparrow, he didn't need to steal the footage. He didn't need to do that if he's such a good video editor, and apparently like an adequate skater who continues to have a career in the second game if after that scandal comes out.
I was always confused about this plot point. I was never sure if he edited the video or if he had like repeated the stunt, which because it was the stunt it was seems just wrong. I think that either way is completely like unthinkable, and we have to sort of congratulate him for his effort.
Right. Yeah. Like, here's the thing. Like, you both end up getting sponsored initially. Like, he's talented enough to at least be a sponsored skater. And obviously, he steals your pro status from you because I'm pretty sure what happens is that I think he just edits your thing out. I think that's what happens. Because, like, he talks about, like, I have the original tape here, the unedited tape or something like that. And you skate for the unedited tape, which even Eric Sparrow knows the value of keeping the masters. He is a guy who preserves things. And we also have to commend that about him, as much as a piece of shit that he is. He is a thief. He is a liar. He still has the artistic integrity to never throw away the original tape.
That's right.
In conclusion, Eric Sparrow is a land of contrasts. A very effective asshole for this game.
What do you say? One last trip around the neighborhood. Winner takes the tape.
But like the other things that make this game like eminently replayable, besides like if you beat the game a second time, you get to punch Eric Sparrow in the head. The unlockables, right? If you beat the game on, I think it's like you beat it on easy, you get Gene Simmons. If you beat it on normal, you unlock Iron Man, the Marvel Comics character Iron Man. And then if you beat it on hard mode, you unlock a character called Thud, which is a parody of Chud from the B movie Chud, which stands for Cannibalistic Humanoid Underground Dweller, and Thud, which I think is amazing, Tony Hawk's Underground Dweller. So this is an underground, like, glowy-eyed, like, naked, cannibalistic monster that you can play as if you beat the game on hard mode. And I just watched Chud 2 weeks ago without knowing that this was a thing about Tony Hawk's Underground. So I was like, oh shit, the world's weird.
World's pretty small. Yeah, it's just sad that Thud got milkshake ducked so thoroughly. And just, really nowadays we should start calling like alt-right, like not neo-Nazi assholes online thuds.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Thud in the Neversoft intro of the game eats Eric Sparrow. He comes out from a sewer grate, he grabs Eric Sparrow, he eats him.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So I think we can accept that Chud bad because Chuds are bad in the movie. They're not the heroes. And Thuds are good because they skateboard and eat evil skateboarders.
He's the most underground skater of them all.
Yeah, he is. He's underground. He's about that life. He doesn't ask for much in lieu of sponsors. He just eats sponsored skaters. I think that's great.
I think that is good. Yeah.
He deals with problems directly. Direct action. He's a direct action advocate. We love that.
We love that here on Select and Start.
Yeah. Eat Eric Sparrow is what I'm saying.
It's not just those elements to me that make it so replayable, though. Games like this and games like Ultimate Destruction, actually, I find they're really fruitful ground for making up silly little role plays about your character.
Yeah.
A game where you can just run around, sometimes skateboard, sometimes get off your board, and there are various little NPCs like kind of around the map. It makes it so easy to just project any sort of story you want. It's like literally just having a little dollhouse to play with. And that's a lot of what I liked from games as a kid. And eventually I started doing like got really into Homestuck role play and I think that frankly, Tony Hawk's Underground was a big reason that happened to me.
Okay, that's a very funny statement if you like break it down. Because of Tony Hawk specifically made me a Homestuck role player. But I understand what you're coming from with that, right? No, because like the older Tony Hawk games were arcadey in nature, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? But you have like a limited time window in these levels, and there's like a stress factor in like familiarizing yourself with these space, meeting whatever criteria you have to meet in order to successfully accomplish whatever task at hand, right? Whether that is like getting, the score that you need, or collecting the items that you need to collect in the level, all that, right? Or doing the stunt that you need to pull off, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hitting all the bells in school, whatever it is that you got to do. In this game, like you're actually able to explore the levels openly. There's no time pressure on you, and the levels are much more open, and there's a lot more to discover and familiarize yourself with. And it rewards you when you actually do the missions that are either have like time limits about them or require you to do elaborate combos, because you have a lay of the land. It's just this really cool thing where, yes, it's less arcadey. It's more of like an adventure game. Having an open world RPG elements because you can like level up your skater by like pulling off like, oh, you did a manual for more than 10 seconds, or, oh, you were like in the air for this long, or you pulled off a grind for this long. Your character's getting stat boosts because of how well you're playing as them. All that stuff like really adds up, and I can understand why somebody might be frustrated that this is a less arcadey experience, but I think that that's what's brilliant about the game, is how it is just like about the life and the simulation of being obviously not rooted in reality because of what you pull off, but like giving life to a world that has mainly just been like built around time limits.
There's so much value in just being able to fucking walk around and just for however long you want. It completely changes how the game feels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that all games should have a single player mode, even if it is like a game that's like, I loved that Street Fighter 6 had like an open like world where you could just go up to some rando and be like, I want to fight you, and they're like, fuck yeah, let's. It just like gets out of his seat like, yeah, we're fucking fighting right now, aren't we? Like, you have a whole city that you can explore, and that doesn't make the game a deeper fighting game, but it makes it a more enjoyable experience that you can play by yourself because they just have a story mode in there. And that's what this game reminded me of, is like that, or like even career modes and whatever like favorite NFL or NBA games are. Like, I just think that there's like having a value of having like a world and a story, even in these games that are meant to be multiplayer or skill driven experiences.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, it speaks for itself. Like, this game may not have like the most robust narrative in the world, but it creates a world, and the levels are very well designed, and you want to stay in them as long as possible.
Yeah, for sure. That is probably the biggest thing that kept me coming back to Tony Hawk's Underground.
Yeah. And like, yes, there are like rewards for like playing it longer. I didn't do this, but if you like find all the gaps in the game, you unlock the pedestrians as playable skaters. That's very elaborate. Like, anything that's a character model you can just play as in the game now, that's nuts.
That's amazing. I never knew that was there.
Yeah, but like, 'cause how many people are going to find every single individual gap in these games? There's so many levels. Like, even that's like including the secret 3 levels you find.
Oh, my thumbs are twitching, Keifer. You shouldn't have told me about this. I'm going to get that GameCube. I'm going to play this again.
You're going to 100% it. Hey, I mean, you have a computer right in front of you.
You know what? You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anything about this game that you wish it did better, or just stuff about it that you don't like?
Yeah, I think so. I think that I sort of alluded to this before, but I think that just like oftentimes the humor is kind of childish, sometimes outright bigoted.
Mm-hmm.
The whole like, look at this fat guy who eats, that just always grates on me.
Yeah. I mean, it's sexist. It is a sexist game. There's so many like, impress some babes so they can come to our party. It's like, okay, bro. Okay, come on. And I played the game as a man. And I didn't think about this, but your character creator there are girl options. And if you play this game as a girl, the game does like the very small requisite work to like, change it. So like they're acknowledging that your character is a girl, but like they don't do anything to change the actual objectives. Like if you're in a cutscene and you have a girl, your girl obviously has a girl voice actor. And like, instead of like Mr. Pure, what Eric Sparrow says to you when like you're about to like kick his ass, she's like, oh, I forgot, you're Miss Pure. Like it'll do like 2 or 3 lines in the game that they change to like recognize you're a girl. But like, say there's a cutscene where your character is pushed by the chest, the character model is going to push the girl's chest. And because they don't change the mission objectives to be like, hey, can you pick up some babes for us? You are now playing as a girl who has to go impress girls. And that makes the game queer representation in the most bro-y way possible.
So the party's cool and all, but there aren't enough girls here. It's a total dude festival.
A party, huh? Well, maybe if you show me how handy you are with that skateboard, I'll come to your party. How about showing me a combo? Wow, that was cool. You seem like fun. I'll go to your party.
Well, she'd go anywhere. I'm not that easy. If you want me to go to your party, you're gonna have to show me more. How about some of those neat freestyle tricks? That was great! You never see people do that stuff anymore. I like you. Make room and I'll come to the party.
Yeah, I mean, you can play as a girl and go and spine transfer into the strip club.
Yes.
Right? And like that is something you can do. And is that good representation? Yes. Bold statement here. Yes, it is good and it is pure.
Yeah, like late in the game when you have to leave Moscow because you're technically you're held like as a political prisoner or whatever. The thing is, you have to do like missions for people, and it's like picking up chicks, but Russianly.
My friend, you like Russian women?
Yeah, sure. But I'd like a one-way ticket to the States even better.
And it's like, haha, you like girls.
Yeah. And I do honestly think that is one of those like emergent fun things. If you play Tony Hawk's Underground as a woman, yeah, you're gonna be a lesbian. That's cool.
Canonical lesbian Tony Hawk Underground custom character.
Yes. On the other hand, but then you get shit like the wise sage who teaches you how to like do a boneless or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's edgy, right? And I think a lot of the edge of the game really ends up working for me. And a lot of it is early 2000s fucking cringe ass drivel.
Yeah. Again, like it has like a, very women are from Venus attitude about women as like desirable objects. And it has like, like a very weirdly racist moment involving an Asian man who tells you like how to do a single trick. And that never comes up again. This is not a character in the game. It's a character for one singular mission.
Yeah.
So it definitely has like, this is the early 2000s. I feel this. But yeah, no, like they're not throwing slurs around constantly. It's the same way I feel when I watch those Jackass movies and they're not homophobic at all. John Waters is in them, first of all, the Jackass movies. But like there is just like, yes, this is like, this weird, like they're doing edgelord shit and they're like beating each other up and they're being like stupid men. But it's rooted in love. And while there are like definitely like some dicey moments in them, it's meant to be like this loving and inclusive thing that they're doing together.
Yeah, you gotta wait for Thug 2 for the outright slurs.
Oh, okay, I didn't know.
I like that game too, but it has some shit in it. But yeah, you're right. This one it comes from a genuine heart that we talk about it representing the culture. The culture was also a little bit shitty.
Yeah, of course. Like you can't just say like everything is great and awesome. And Eric Sparrow is certainly a personification of like the shitty attitudes that embody it, where there's people just like chasing clout and burning people. And as one of the songs in the game says, like skating is one of the few sports that you have that like teaches independence or whatever. And this can be a very conservative or libertarian idea, and there's certainly libertarian ideas in skating communities, right?
Yeah.
But it is also fundamentally a community-oriented thing. On like a competitive level, yes, it's an individual sport, but it's about like individual skill and having to teach yourself and overcome obstacles yourself while like people are advocating for you and lifting you up. Tony Hawk like went out of his way to like make sure that like the people that he cared about were included in these games. This is not a guy who's like been looking out for number one, and that's like why he's like the symbol of skateboarding, is because he is like the guy that cares about the sport so much that he's trying to like uplift voices in it, making sure that there is a woman character in the game through like Alyssa Steamer, who is not in the story mode, weirdly enough, which also kind of like adds to the masculine sensibilities of it. Alyssa Steamer has in 2020 come out as queer, by the way. She's in a relationship with a woman, but you know, that's like retroactive representation in a way. Yeah.
Alyssa Steamer is queer. Who could have? I wouldn't have guessed even while playing this game.
What do you mean?
Skateboarding women? No.
Women on a skateboard? Impossible.
It ain't gonna happen, kid.
It's not gonna happen. Eric Sparrow edited video footage of himself into that helicopter. A woman couldn't have done that jump.
Oh God.
Yeah. That's another like layer to that thing if you really think about that. Like,
yeah.
I think there's like a whole essay you could write about playing Tony Hawk's Underground as a woman.
Honestly, yeah, I put that in my back pocket for later when I become a popular YouTube video essayist.
Yeah, there you go. But yeah, we're supposed to be complaining about the game. One issue I have is like this. I like the fact that you can walk around, even though like it feels like shit sometimes. You being able to climb and do things, that's all well and good, and it adds to like the whole immersive experience of the thing, and like the being able to like bail out of a combo by getting off your board and then having the timer go off, and it's like, okay, let me align myself, and then okay, and I'm going on this grind next. Great feature. There is no reason for driving to be in the game, and the driving sucks, and the driving missions suck. That being said, I'm also glad that's in the game because, again, it makes the world feel richer.
Yeah, that's it's good once, right? I think it's pretty fun, although again, mechanically kind of bad when you're doing it in New Jersey and trying to get out of town. Every other instance of it, like trying to drive the car into the like river in Manhattan, all that, it's never that fun, and yet I can't hate it.
Yeah, like the missions with the car are either like obnoxiously easy or why am I doing this more than once? And like I said, the car controls aren't great. It's very early 2000s. This is clearly not a game that's not meant to have cars in it. But again, because like it is another thing you can do in this world, and makes the world feel bigger and like more like a sandbox, to your earlier point. It does that, but it also sucks. But I also wouldn't cut it. But it's also very funny they spent as much time on it as they did, and then they had to justify it as a mechanic by like having them as missions in the overworld.
Yeah.
I would not have spent any amount of time doing this, but it also is a testament to how different video game development is 3 generations removed, that it's like, fuck it, we'll throw cars in there, why not? Which is like, that would take years to do now. They were still doing like figuring out the game like 2 months before it was like scheduled to release, because these games again were made in like a very quick 1-year turnaround. Miracle work. Everybody who made this game deserves $1 million every year forever. It's just like crazy that that's what they spent time on, but also like I don't hate it, but also like this sucks.
Yeah.
Okay, another flaw with the game. Why the fuck are there stealth missions in a Tony Hawk game?
Yes, I forgot all about these, but they are bad. They are BAD bad. Why do I get it. It's cool that you can get off your board and you can walk around. That's really fun.
Yes.
Tony Hawk is not the game to be stealthy. Tony Hawk is the game where you want to fucking grind on a rail. You want to jump over someone's head. You don't want to have to worry about, it must have been the wind. I spotted you. Die, start over. That's not what Tony Hawk is.
No. You're supposed to go fast. This is a wheels game. You were on wheels 95 to 99% of the time. Like any stealth mission, you're going to do more than once. And it's like you either have to like find a weird way to cheese it or go down this very specific narrow path. And that sucks because it's not about like actually being good at stealth. It's just about like following the specific path outlined for you, that's not stealth. That's just whatever. I have issues with stealth in non-stealth games all the time because why do we put it in games that don't have it? And it's weird that one of those games that have mandatory stealth is a skateboarding video game.
It's a bad decision. Stealth is the other the other big stealth game. I don't know why this has popped in my head, but another game where it just seems like this should not be in this game is like Kingdom Hearts 358 Days Over 2, where you have to stealth behind Pete for a long section of it.
Oh god, the Agrabah stealth sequence. Oh, fuck me, yeah.
It's the same kind of thing. Why am I doing this when I could be fighting Heartless? Why am I doing this when I could be fucking doing a sick air grab?
Right. Put skateboarding in Kingdom Hearts.
Oh, wait, that's a really good idea, actually.
Yeah, they have a rhythm game. Editor Keifer here. I forgot that there was, in fact, skateboarding in Kingdom Hearts 2. I wish to apologize to the audience as well as Tetsuya Nomura for my mistake.
Yeah, and that's the kind of what keeps pulling me back to Tony Hawk is that I realize that it's kind of just a rhythm game.
Yeah.
It's not, yes, it is music based because half of the end game's fun is that you're hearing awesome music, but you're not playing along to the rhythm of a song. There's not, guitar beats going along, but these people made Guitar Hero. There is a DNA here.
Yeah. I mean, like it makes sense that they were the people that took over Guitar Hero from 3 onward. And yeah, sports and things like this are a rhythm and there's a skill to it. And it's very much about like being able to read information in a way where it's like, am I going to land this? Would this be possible? Do I need more air? When you're doing manuals, especially, everything feels so like risky when you're doing them. Like being able to like make sure that you keep your reticle centered or whatever that thing is. That's like keeping you balanced. There's definitely rhythm game elements to them. It's not Hi-Fi Rush or anything like that, but it is like adjacent. Have you played Hi-Fi Rush, by the way? I meant to ask you.
No, that's what I want to get around to because I keep hearing good things.
It's fucking great. You would love it. Also incredible soundtrack. Yeah, let's talk about the soundtrack then. What do you think of the soundtrack overall? What are some of your favorite songs and what are some of your least favorites, if you can recall?
I mean, the soundtrack is fucking amazing.
It is.
It's just killer wall to wall. There are stinkers, and yes, there are songs that are better than others. But with the age I played this at, I didn't listen to a lot of music, right? Like my mom's favorite bands were, she liked Nickelback, and so I listened to a lot of Nickelback. And she enjoyed Carrie Underwood, so I listened to a lot of Carrie Underwood. And that this really shaped my musical like taste. I hadn't heard a lot of punk music. I hadn't heard a lot of hip hop. Probably like not this game, but like American Wasteland is probably the first time I heard like My Chemical Romance, for instance.
Right.
And I just think this specific soundtrack is kind of the song of it's the playlist of my childhood in a lot of ways.
I get that. Especially the hip hop stuff on this game. Really well curated.
Yeah. A few of my favorites. We get Deltron 3030 in here.
Deltron, yes.
And Bus Driver, Imaginary Places. So that is like engraved in my brain for just like the rest of my life. I think that is probably like one of my favorite tracks on here. And it also had Rise Against, which I really like some Rise Against.
Rise Against, that was a good track on there. But like Cannibal Ox, what the fuck? Multiple tracks produced by LP on this thing. Yeah, Dan the Automator featuring Kool Keith with A Better Tomorrow and Deltron 3030 with Positive Contact is maybe my favorite Deltron song personally.
Yeah.
Which like it's interesting because like I think a lot of people was like, I found Deltron through this. And for me, it was like, I mean, I found Deltron through Gorillaz technically because I was a Damon Albarn stan.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, he had like he's featured on this album as a narrator. I'm going to listen to this. Oh shit. That kind of thing, right? It's an insanely well curated hip hop playlist.
Meanwhile, over on the rock section, I think we have a number of stinkers.
Mm-hmm.
But my personal biggest one is that I just can't fucking hear another Kiss song. I do not like Kiss. I don't want to rock and roll all night. I would rather not party every day.
Okay, we're doing this. I don't like Kiss. that everything. All right, listen. If there's anything that makes this game feel illegitimate in any way, like the way that people talk about things being forced upon people in like media, like, oh, like the woke agenda, oh, LGBTQ, whatever, being forced upon people. That's how I fucking feel about Kiss in anything. Anytime Kiss shows up in anything, I'm like, this is so fucking bullshit. I hate Kiss so much. You're trying to force Kiss to, especially in like the media of our generation. Weirdly, a lot of kids media where Kiss is like, oh, it's Kiss, Gene Simmons. Why is there a Scooby-Doo movie with Kiss? Why was there like a Fairly Odd Parents special with fucking Kiss in it? Why is there a Kiss level in Tony Hawk's Underground? The worst level in the game, by the way. If there's one level I don't care for, it's the Kiss level.
It's the Kiss level. It's bullshit. Gene Simmons is a playable skater. I'm never gonna fucking play Gene Simmons. Who do you think I am?
He doesn't have a floating skateboard like Iron Man.
They're not cool or counterculture or punk at all. Kiss are boring. Kiss suck. Kiss are like the most ghost imprint, like the sad reflection of when something becomes mainstream. It's like the sad phantom of what skateboarding could have been in that way.
It's like, what if like Imagine Dragons insisted upon itself for like 50 years and like suddenly like 30 years into their career was like, all right, you know what we got to do next is like make the next generation of kids just fucking get into this thing. And it's like, no. Like Kiss is like I know the audience for Kiss. I know exactly the audience for Kiss. And it's like, you know, early Gen X boomer people who it's like, I like rock music. I like the aesthetic of something, but I don't want to reckon with the actual meaning behind it. So like there's this whole brand of things that like looks like rock, but isn't. Whatever. We don't have to do like the whole poser thing, right?
I'll say on the skateboarding episode, I think it's okay if we call people posers.
Kiss is poser shit. You know, I try my best to be fair and measured and understand the appeal of everything. If you like Kiss, that's great. You are not the problem. You, the person who likes Kiss, are never the problem. I want to just like, I just hate Gene Simmons in this weird, it feels like a cynical thing. It feels very cynical.
You're right. Like one might say, okay, if you tell me your favorite hip hop artist is Drake, that doesn't make you bad.
No.
If you tell me at the same time, it's the same thing, right? Kiss and Drake, I'm basically comparing them and saying that they're the same thing.
I would say that, I mean, that's not an unfair comparison. There's like, look, let's kick Drake while he's down. Let's do it. It's just the appearance of something, but it's not like backed behind anything. It's just like, I'm this, you like this, therefore you like me, right? And it's like, yeah, but like, what about you do I like besides that you are that thing? And it's like, no, you like the thing. And it's like, I know this is so cynical, dude. This is nothing.
So my message to you all, if you like Drake, if you like Kiss, you're not bad, you're just boring.
All right. I won't even say that. I think that I've seen like a lot of like really brilliant people like just like hang on to like, there's very basic things that I like, you know, but it's just like in Tony Hawk of all things just feels, it's an interesting juxtaposition, and having a whole video that you can watch of live performances feels like that's the part that makes it the extra mile into this feeling like you're forcing this upon me. You're forcing this upon me.
Yeah. That's one less skate video for the disc.
Yeah. There's 3 categories of music. There's like punk music, there's the hip hop music, and then there's like rock music or like kind of things that aren't basically just like the section that isn't punk or hip hop that you just like sort under rock. And that's like the weakest stuff in there because it's like kind of whatever they like. Queens of the Stone Age, fucking great inclusion. I love Queens of the Stone Age.
Yeah.
But there's like, that's the stuff that's like in this general corner, the kind of butt rocky adjacent kind of stuff that like isn't even like the good enduring butt rock. That stuff in there is kind of the stuff I'm going to like. That's the stuff I'm inclined to skip, even though like there are moments where I'm like, yeah, you know what? Mississippi King is a good song. I'm going to keep listening to this. And then sometimes it's like, I'm not in the mood for Mississippi King.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's the weakest section for sure. I could probably, if I'm going to go back and re-listen to any of these songs, they're rarely going to be picked from the rock section.
Yeah.
And you know what the biggest loss for this, I'm realizing the soundtrack is? And I only really realized this when I went back and played Pro Skater 4. There's not enough ska.
Yeah, you know, you're right. I know ska is like I think, again, time and place, right? Time and place. And I think people are very mean to ska. there's time and place for ska. I know I just like went on a rant against Kiss right now, but like, listen, The Clash use ska all the time, and we all fucking love The Clash. It's fine. It's the person, it's not the genre. It's always the artist, not the genre. Speaking of the White Riot, great punk song on here. But yes, you can't spell skate without ska, is my point.
That I just completely agree. Yeah.
It's part of the culture. You have stuff that's close to ska in here. Like one of the closest things we have to a ska song is Seed by Sublime, which is like 4 songs in one. None of them great. And that has like the ska kind of riffs in there for a second. But yeah, not really a lot of ska representation on this track.
Yeah, that's a disappointment.
We got Dropkick Murphys in the punk section. We got, let's see, Bad Religion, great inclusion. I know that they're very enthusiastic about like the Tony Hawk series and are grateful to have themselves included in these games. I like The Addicts, good inclusion with Viva la Revolution. Really, like, again, it's like this hip hop sound stuff I'm really grabbing onto because of how very specific it is. And it's not, like I said, like we talked about the top 5 tracks of the week this game came out, but like the fact that the hip hop tracks on this playlist do not sound remotely like the songs that were in like the top, 40 music at the time. And it wouldn't be a problem if it was. It wouldn't be a problem if it was, because again, like great eras for hip hop in different ways in mainstream and in the underground scene. But it's just like very well curated because I didn't expect like a series that like skews white to be so well researched. I really want to know who curated the soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like having Deltron 3030 on here, having Doom on here, it makes it feel authentic in that way. This feels like some shit that a skater would be listening to.
Yeah. If you were like actually trying to like engage with any genre below the surface level, this is a great playlist to really like sink your teeth into, especially in 2003. You have Nas on here. Like, I think Nas is probably the most popular artist that's in here. The World Is Yours, good track. You have Herbalizer and MF Doom doing It Ain't Nothing, great song. Jurassic 5, who's also in Jet Set Radio, also on the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, you have Cannibal Ox. Cannibal fucking Ox is just like a great pull for this.
It's killer. It's all killer.
Quasimodo, the fucking Madlib project, that's on here. That's great.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. So like I said, great hip hop soundtrack, little mixed on the rock stuff, punk soundtrack generally strong. Great soundtrack. Again, like more hits than misses, which is awesome.
Definitely. Yeah.
Anything else you want to mention about the soundtrack while we're still on this subject?
The soundtracks, it's good that there are lists out there because the soundtracks for these three, for Underground 2, American Wasteland, gets so mixed up in my head. It's so nice to feel just like people have curated playlists, right? You can just go listen to the entire soundtrack and put it on random or something like that, like as if you're actually playing the game. It's a great soundtrack to life.
Yeah. There's a couple tracks on here that aren't on Spotify, but for the most part, everything's available on like streaming services, which again, since there are so many like small artists on here, that's great. This is fun. There are more tracks in this game than there are in the first Rock Band.
Really?
Yeah, so like it's fine if a few of them don't hit. I don't love all the songs in Rock Band. So like you're allowed to have a couple misses. Tony Hawk's Underground, still an incredible soundtrack.
Yeah, I mean, it's so incredible that the thing people think about when they think about Tony Hawk games, it's usually the soundtrack.
Yeah. This was a Mandela effect thing, I guess, for me. Not in like a literal sense. I don't subscribe to that. But like United States of Whatever is so strongly associated with this game. Not on the soundtrack. It was only used in a commercial. And that fucked me up a little bit.
Really? See, that's funny. I'm looking at the Tony Hawk Games wiki right now, and the top comment is, wasn't there a song called My United States of Whatever on this soundtrack?
It was only used in the commercial for the video game, which is also weird that they used a song that wasn't in the game.
That's that false advertisement.
Yeah. I want my money back.
One special note about the soundtrack is that there is one group on here, Mike V and the Rats. That is Mike Vallely, who is one of the skaters in this game.
Oh, incredible.
So the skaters contributed not just to, level design and their likenesses, but also to the music.
Yeah, like there are certainly quite a few songs on here that are specifically about skating. Very robust soundtrack. I totally get why people connect to it. It's still just blowing my mind because like, did you watch that Scott Pilgrim show on Netflix?
Yeah. They
have like United States of Whatever in like one of the skating scenes in that show. And it's like, haha, like in Tony Hawk's Underground. And it's like, no. It wasn't in Tony Hawk's Underground. It was only in the commercial.
That's right. That was really the reason I gave that show 1 star. I like that show, but
Yeah, that's a great show.
Boy, I really hope somebody got fired for that blunder.
Overall, what would you say Thug's impact was on you?
It formed a lot of my tastes and stuff, but I also think that it made a lot of sort of indirect impacts. This is a game, probably one of the first games where I was able to like play as a girl in the video game. And I didn't always do that. I played through the story mode a lot with a lot of different characters, but that was big for me as a kid. Trans people talk about it all the time. Just like, it's cool to be able to explore gender in some different way through a video game. And I think that did lend some ability for me to do the same thing here. Also, this is a bit goofy, right? But like skateboarding, counterculture, punk rock, this game very much, I think, led to like informing a lot of my politics eventually. I think that like the pipeline of, oh, cool, skating, oh shit, yeah, awesome, punk rock music, to like, okay, I'm listening to more deep cut punk music, to okay, I am reading Proudhon. All right, I'm reading Theory now. I am like that. It kind of feels like it set me on a good path. I like it. It's a game with an anti-cop message, which I do appreciate and did inform a lot of my thoughts as a kid.
Oh yeah, very strongly anti-cop game, which I was surprised by because how close this game came out to 9/11 and everything like that. Like there was definitely like a conservative bend to a lot of art at the time, but no, they openly call cops pigs in this game. A big part of having a custom character be the character you play as is because since they're using real life people, they didn't want to like implicate anybody real in the crimes that you have to do as the player character. And it's not a game where it's like, oh, everything you're doing is left wing and radical and cool. Like there's a one thing where it's like, hey, can you like destroy all of these vendors? How much property damage can you do to these like people who are just selling food on the street or something like that? But like its attitude about cops is 100% correct. One line in the game, your player character says,
"What's your problem, bacon bits? Wake up on the wrong side of your mother this morning?"
It's right. It's the edge. It's the humor. It's allowed to, because it's stupid skating bullshit, and skating has always been kind of the enemy of cops in a way. That allows it to go a little bit farther than other games would.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it in the Jet Set Radio episode back in 2022, Jesus, but like having cops as the enemy of people who are like doing graffiti tagging, it makes sense. Like there's a logical reason for it. It's not necessarily being left wing, but it makes sense that these cultures are anti-authoritarian in nature because they are forms of trying to stifle self-expression. And street skating emerge is literally like, we don't have a place to skate, so we do it in the streets. And we're punished for it because people see it as a danger when they're not doing anything destructive. They're just expressing themselves and trying to have fun in public areas.
It exposes the contradictions in policing as like something that is primarily, it's there to serve capital. It's there to serve the interests of people who want to keep home rates high, who want to keep businesses happy, who want their like, who want the money to keep flowing in. And skateboarding isn't radical inherently or anything like that, but it does, its nature is one that is a little bit dangerous and a little bit like inherently like trespassing, right? You're often trespassing when you skateboard if you're like a street skater. And I think that just makes it one of the best venues to explore, one of the easiest intros to why are the police nonsense?
Absolutely. It's one of those things where it's like they're just enforcing various like loitering laws and trespassing laws on people who don't have anywhere to go because third places have been obliterated in like the late 20th into the 21st century. If people who wants to actively be outside, something that is promoted in you and like beaten into you as a kid, go outside, go do something. And then they do, and then you get punished for it because like the idea of like keeping the peace is something that is applying specifically. I mean, one who leverages the police, but like people who, like you said, have the capital, own the property. There's never any like resolutions to give children more places or teenagers, youth, or people who just are enthusiasts and like want to skate, places for them to be. They have to hang out somewhere, and there's not doing anything wrong as long as they're not hurting anybody physically. This isn't promoting violence. This is not a culture that promotes violence. It's something where it is a lot of people's like thing that keeps them from falling into something worse. It's a community that emerges of people who just love the same thing and try and look out for each other.
Yeah, I mean, that's a story that's even technically presented here in Underground, which is like everyone in town is pretty much just like their main thing is doing drugs.
Yeah.
And your thing is skateboarding. And I think that is a corny story a little bit, like it's a pretty simplified story, but also not totally like this is actual people's stories sometimes too.
Mm-hmm. It makes sense. Like, yeah, it's like a bad town. They're trying to get out of it, and they have skating as like their one thing, and they try to use skating as like the way to make mobility in their circumstances. The story is corny, but it is lived experiences for people.
Yeah.
Like, it matters to people that like skaters do demos in places that besides California and, you know, New York.
Yeah, that is one of the it's the heart of the game, right? As skating is unproductive. Although we also see in this game the ways that skating is entangled with capital as it becomes more mainstream, as like these companies and these sponsors become more and more about what skating is about.
Right.
It takes a kind of frank look at all that and ends with sort of a note of optimism, maybe naive optimism. You come back to like, what is it? Spirit skating, I think. But I appreciate it regardless.
Right. Like Eric Sparrow's whole like thing, or like his downfall or descent, or the thing that represents his like evil tendencies, is like he's doing it for wealth and fame and everything like that. Like he's driving around in a limo. He calls you poor. He thinks that, you know, because he has the most money, he's the best skater. And, you know, he has like the corporate sponsors and everything. And when you are like trying to turn your life around, your sponsor is real life skater Stacy Peralta, who is like, you know, a hippie mentality, like you said, like the spirit skating kind of thing. And his like thing to you is like, you can't use skating to get back at people. You got to skate for yourself, man. That's what this is all about. You got to do it for you.
It gives me a stomachache. I can't believe kids will look at Eric and think that's what skating is about.
Look, you got a deal if you want to make it as a pro.
Man, I just want to skate like the old days. It used to relax me, not stress me out.
That's your deal, man. Skating is whatever you make it. It didn't change. You're the one that changed. Now go skate. You'll remember why you started in the first place.
When you turn that around on Eric Sparrow, when you do eventually have to, you know, fight him again, Peralta is like the one sponsor you still have. So like it is this thing where it's like, yes, you're still entangled in capitalism because you do have real life skater Stacy Peralta backing you and sponsoring you or whatever. But hey, he's trying to give you sage advice about it. It's like the nature of the thing that you know, that money's built into this thing. You still got to skate for you ultimately. And it's like the means to an end kind of attitude, I guess.
Absolutely.
Jeez, man. I think we broke the piñata with that video. We can't even keep up with orders.
Oh, how cute. Two little skaters and their ghetto shop. Heard your video went over pretty good. I guess kids dig that goofy soul skating crap. I tell you what, I'll buy you out for $500,000 right now. I got my checkbook.
I told you. It was never about the money.
Right, I forgot. Miss Pure, I should have fixed you back in Tampa.
Tell it to your posse. We're through. I've got everything I need.
Yeah, it's not, like I said, it's not theory. Playing Tony Hawk's Underground is not theory. Gene Simmons is in it, right? That there's no theory with Bam Margera in it. Jackass can teach us how to like love our fellow man, but it's not theory. But this is a great and fucking great game. And is there anything else you want to say about how it's like impacted you?
I think that's probably it.
Right. I mean, wonderful game. You've said a lot about how it's impacted you. You're skating now. You're gonna live like James D. You're gonna be a superstar.
Well, God, that song's pretty good, actually.
Yeah. It's been stuck in my head all week. I'll say that.
Yeah. Now it's going to be in mine too. Yeah. I mean, that is true. It's impacted me because I probably wouldn't be skating nowadays. I mean, it gave me a little seed of courage. Like it makes me want to, like, thinking about this game, thinking about how fucking cool it is, and thinking about how it lets you change how you see the world. This is a game that shows you a world that doesn't look all too different from what you see, other than a few extra ramps and grind spots, and lets you reimagine what your actual world could be if if you had a skateboard, or if you just decided to like move in it a bit differently.
Yeah. I mean, hey, the Jersey level is based off of, again, one of the Neversoft employees' actual like neighborhoods. So
Yeah,
there's life in this game.
there is. Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful game. Thank you for suggesting it so I could finally play it. I really had a great time with it. And that's going to just about do it for Tony Hawk's Underground.
You're a pro? They entered you as an amateur.
Someone made a mistake.
If you could put any character in a Tony Hawk skateboarding game, who would it be?
This is a really good question, because like when I played Underground, in all these games, I would usually just play as a creative skater. I would usually play as whoever my story character was, or Rodney Mullen, because I fucking love Rodney Mullen.
Mm-hmm.
But the guest characters are so fun. It's always just some stupid bullshit like a Marvel character or
Django Fett once.
Yeah, Django Fett. And I have two answers to this, I think.
Okay.
If it has to be a fictional character fully, I'm going to say it would be like literally any character from Digimon.
Okay.
Because I think that like Ty from Digimon looks like he should be on a skateboard.
Everyone in Digimon, even the Digimon themselves, look like they should be on a Agumon should be skating.
That's what I'm saying. I want them to make the really bad blown up model of fucking Terriermon on a skateboard. I think that'd be so cool. And my second one would be the wrestler Mayu Iwatani from the promotion World Wondering Stardom.
Right.
Because Mayu Iwatani is just a cartoon in living form, and I would love to see she's very famous for how she sells moves, as if she's an inhuman, like her body is like Luffy, and I want to see her fall off a skateboard. I think that'd be fun.
Mm-hmm. Great answers. Goku should be skateboarding is my answer. Not really, but yes, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm doubling down. Put Goku in Tony Hawk. Put Goku in everything. Just why not? Why not? I mean, all the guest characters always have max stats. Who has the most max stats, actually?
Can we get different forms of guest characters? One for Kid Goku, one for Super Saiyan 1, one for Super Saiyan 2, one for Kaioken.
Goku on the Nimbus Cloud. That should be it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
That's great. I think we got something. I think we're cooking here. I'm a huge fan of Avatar: The Last Airbender. If you had the air scooter for Aang, that'd be great. He has a skater mentality when you think about it.
People don't talk about alternate skateboards enough. They talk about alternate skaters, but alternate skateboards is pretty key too.
Yeah. Because Tony Hawk has not Tony Hawk. Tony Hawk has a regular skateboard. Iron Man has the floating board. That should just be. We need this mindset. I don't know if Shrek has a special board. I've only seen the character model, and it's very funny to be in Underground 2. Jesus, he just looks like he's out of place. He looks modded into the game.
Yeah, that's the vibe.
He looks modded in. It's uncanny. I know I've said uncanny a million times this episode, but the Shrek it looks wrong. Oh, you know who should be in these kinds of games? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, why haven't they been? They're the perfect attitude for it too.
Exactly. Instead of Gene Simmons, put Donatello or Michelangelo in there. Come on, guys.
Come on.
Let's do it.
No wonder they fucking went under.
Yeah. In the sewers, underground, there they live.
Mm-hmm. This is the problem.
Activision, pick up the phone. Open the schools. Open school too.
Oh my god. School level.
That's going to do it for Tony Hawk's Underground. What would you recommend to people based off of today's episode?
I have a few recommendations, if that's okay.
Go for it.
My first one, if you just want another story about some punk kids getting out to skateboarding in a shitty little town, I want to recommend the ongoing comic series written by I think Rick Remender, Grommets. Grommets has 3 issues out right now and is about just a kid in I think the 80s or 90s who moves to a little town where everyone is an asshole and everyone seems to love to skate. It's about them getting up to misadventures, dealing with problems of family and just normal teen shit, but all done through the lens of skateboarding. And I think that's a really good comic book. I have a few movies that I want to recommend. If you want just a movie about skateboarding, then I would say pick up like Lords of Dogtown or Dogtown and the Z Boys. Those are both really good. You could watch those as a duology if you want to. I think the movie Slacker is very Tony Hawk core.
Mm-hmm.
That is by who's the director on that one?
It's a Linklater, isn't it?
Yeah, that's a Linklater movie.
Yeah, I love Linklater.
Yeah, that one is killer, and it's just a bunch of there's no skating in it if I remember correctly, but it does have just the vibe of like a bunch of random people living their random lives. On that same note, Harmony Korine movies, Julian Donkey Boy, Spring Breakers are ones I would shout out as also having that sort of same vibe to it. And also just like pick up some, like, you can just go on YouTube and look up skate videos, and I think that'll be a fun time.
Yeah, Spike Jonze' like first like known video was a skate video.
Yeah.
That's how Jason Lee also got his start, was I think on that same skate video.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And people are making great videos today. Small YouTube channels and big like sponsored skaters are still going at that. It's the fun thing about skate videos is that's not just like, it's not pure tricks with cool music. That's a lot of it, but it's also like people having fun, people bailing, a lot of bailing actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is one of the most fun parts of just like the skate culture is like you can laugh at yourself when you fail.
Absolutely. I mean, skateboarding made it to the Olympics during the 2020 Summer Olympics. And while we're recording this, we're currently watching the 2024 Summer Olympics. Tony Hawk did that. And the reason Tony Hawk is such a known entity is part of these video games. So you can thank video games for why skateboarding is in the Olympics, kind of technically. But the point is, if you care about skateboarding and you haven't seen like the Olympic skateboarding, check it out, because it like shows like how this is such like a gymnastic kind of sport, and it takes a lot of technical skill beyond just being an acrobatic kind of person. There's a lot of, you have to stay like the board having to stay with you. They're not glued to their feet. It is defying gravity to do basically any kind of skateboarding stunt. It is an incredible feat.
Yeah. And I'd like to recommend 2 manga, both of which are Shonen Jump manga, one of which is canceled. That one is Tenmaku Cinema, which is about a young boy with a passion for filmmaking. And filmmaking and skateboarding are pretty much inextricably tied in my mind. They are just so important to each other, I think. And it's another story of like a scrappy upstart who learns the nitty-gritty details of how to make something work. And my other one is an ongoing manga, partially by the creator of Death Note, I believe, called Shoha Shoten. This is about two high school boys who go into manzai comedy. And this has a lot of the same heart as Tony Hawk, I would say, where you are getting into these deep, sort of scrappy relationships with other people in your craft. You are learning a lot. You are seeing who has the chops. You're learning from those people. And you're also meeting a lot of real assholes along the way. And it has that spirit of competition. And so I would also recommend that one.
Oh yeah, all great recommendations and stuff I want to check out myself. So thank you so much for recommending those. I also have quite a number of recommendations. I'm going to start with the video games and then work my way back. The first thing I want to recommend is, I covered this back in 2022. I mentioned it early in this episode. Check out Jet Set Radio if you haven't already. It's not as trick heavy, combo driven as the Tony Hawk games are, but it's still a lot of fun. It's colorful, it's vibrant, has an incredible soundtrack. If you haven't played it, it's on Steam, worth playing. Great games. I've been meaning to play Bomb Rush Cyberfunk, which I know is like a sort of a mix with, it has like the style of Jet Set Radio with a lot more combo driven stunt work, closer to the kinds of stuff you would do in Tony Hawk's Underground. I haven't been able to play that yet, but I've been meaning to. But if you know of that game and haven't played Jet Set Radio, make sure you also check out Jet Set Radio, one of the main influences for it. The other game I want to recommend, I just started playing this the other day. I'm having a great time with it. It feels so good to play. It's called Rollerdrome. It is a 2022 action game developed by British studio Roll7, who previously made the Ollie Ollie games and Not a Hero. It is set in a dystopian future of 2030, in which your player character is in a Running Man style sport called Rollerdrome, where you must perform roller skating tricks while you shoot your opponents with various firearms. It has been called a mix between the Tony Hawk games and Doom because of its fast-paced combat, But since it's in third person and there's a slow-mo bullet time mechanic, I think the more apt comparison would be a mix between Tony Hawk and Max Payne. A Tony Payne, Max Hawk, if you will.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I started playing it the other day, and I really, really, really recommend checking it out. It's on PlayStation 4, PS5, Xbox X and S, and so on, and it's on Windows. Roll7 was a very wonderful developer that unfortunately was shuttered by their parent company, Take-Two Studios, this year. And Take-Two CEO Strauss Zelnick denied that the studio was closing after it was reported that it was closing, which is fucking bonkers. Either way, you can see multiple former Roll7 employees post on social media about being laid off, which suggests to me that the company's functionally gone. Fuck you, Take-Two, for closing a studio with an exciting future ahead of it. Rollerdrome's a great game. Super seriously, if you haven't played it already, check it out. It's a lot of fun. It also feels like if they had a sequel made, it probably would have been like the jump in quality from Tony Hawk Pro Skater to Pro Skater 2. This is a premise that has a lot of strength to it. I really feel like if they were still around, the next game they would have made would have been like a true bona fide masterpiece. And this is already a great game, Rollerdrome. It feels so good to play. So check these two games out, Jet Set Radio and Rollerdrome. Have you played Rollerdrome, Jacqueline?
No, I haven't, but I really want to now based on that recommendation.
Yeah, it's really good. Visually looks really cool too. The next thing I want to recommend is a movie called Minding the Gap. It's a 2018 documentary film by Bing Liu, made up of footage he shot over 12 years of him and his two friends he met while skateboarding around Rockford, Illinois. It is primarily it is about skateboarding and like how these people like are able to stay close to each other, but it's also about how skateboarding is an escape for them to get outside of their abusive home situations. And since it's shot over 12 years, you can see like them mature and grow up and see how being in these situations have affected them so much and what that change looks like and how this, particular issue, abuse, poverty, the cycles of abuse and the things that people do to escape it and the things that it can do to help them improve. And Bing Liu's case, he's not only a skateboarder, but he's a filmmaker and he's able to like give visibility to the subject while also providing like a really in-depth specific insight to it. So if you haven't seen this, it's on Hulu. It's called Minding the Gap. Really, really wonderful documentary film. Music, I want to recommend. We mentioned it earlier, but if you haven't listened to Deltron 3030's album, Deltron 3030, check it out. It is a rap opera. It's a lore-driven hip-hop project. Del the Funky Homo Sapien, who was featured in multiple Gorillaz tracks off that first album, and Damon Albarn is featured in as like a narrator in Deltron 3030. If you like music like Gorillaz, if you like the music of Tony Hawk's Underground, check that out. On that same subject, MF Doom and Madlib are featured on the soundtrack of Tony Hawk's Underground, albeit in different tracks. They did a collaborative album together called Mad Villainy. Mad Villain's the name of the group that the two did together. Mad Villainy is the name of the album. If you haven't listened to Mad Villainy and you are aware of MF Doom in any capacity, you gotta listen to the album. It's great. It's incredible. It is, one of the hip hop albums to listen to. Yeah, so Deltron 3030 and Mad Villainy. And on the punk side of things, I've talked about this artist multiple times on the show, Jeff Rosenstock. He is a punk artist. He has his roots like being in like ska bands like the Arrogant Sons of Bitches, would go on to be in bands like Bomb the Music Industry, and then went solo and is Jeff Rosenstock. And his solo work is some of my favorite music ever. Very Tony Hawk style music is what I'll say. It's very punk. It's very left-wing, anti-capitalist music. It's just about humanity, finding love in the people that you care about, in the cities that you hate to see be gentrified and changed. Check out the albums Worry from 2016 or No Dream from 2020. Again, it's just great punk music from a really passionate artist.
That's a great recommendation. I had Worry on every single day for like that whole year. It was just on loop. It was so good.
Oh yeah, it's great. I just got to see him live in Chicago a couple months ago, and it was one of my favorite live experiences ever. When I saw him live back in 2021 in DC, that was my favorite live experience ever. Just an artist that keeps on giving. This artist means so much to me. And that's going to do it for my recommendations. Do you have anything else you want to say, Jacqueline, before I have you promote yourself?
I think that's it.
All right. Well, Jacqueline, it was really wonderful to have you on to talk about such a wonderful video game. You've been a wonderful guest. Please promote the hell out of yourself so people know where to find you after this episode.
Hell yeah. Okay. So if you want to find me on social medias and stuff, you can find me on Tumblr at Swampert, like the Pokemon. You can also find me on podcasts such as Unwise Girls and Dead Teen House Party, which is a sort of teen slasher rewatch podcast. We have a whole season on the Scream series, the Scream TV series, rather. And we are just starting to put out our episodes on the Fear Street movie series. We're also in recording on another series right now, but that'll be a little bit. Unwise Girls also just started a new season where we are covering Rick Riordan's third Camp Half-Blood Chronicles series. We're starting the sort of like, I guess, 11th book he did in that. And that's an exciting adventure. I didn't even think about promoting this. I just put out a visual novel.
Oh, wow.
There was a game jam recently called the Manhattan Jam, which is like, all right, here's a game jam, make a visual novel in a month. And so me and my friend got together and we put together a visual novel called Houndstooth. You can find it on itch.io. fang-2-marrow.itch.io/houndstooth. We have Act 1 out right now, and it's got a little bit of skateboarding in it, actually. It's just about 3 women, how they come together and how they fall apart, and about hot older women telling you what to do. So that is that.
All right. Well, great. And I hope everybody checks that stuff out, Jacqueline. You've been a really wonderful guest. I'm really excited to check out that visual novel. Thank you once again for being on the show. And thank you so much for listening to this episode of Select and Start. Once again, I am your host, editor, and promoter, Keifer. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please give the show a positive review wherever you're listening to this. Engagement helps the show, and your feedback will improve it. And if you want to get more engaged, give the show a follow on Twitter @SelectPodStart. If you have thoughts about Tony Hawk's Underground or any other games we've discussed, send a DM or leave a comment, and I will gladly read it on the show. You can also support me on Patreon. If you pledge at least $1 a month, you'll get early access to new episodes as well as extended episodes with exclusive content. You could have listened to a longer version of this episode. That's on patreon.com/Keifer's Corner. You can find a link to that and the rest of my projects in the description of this episode. Select and Start is on the Moonshot Network, which is supported by its own Patreon. Find out more on moonshotpods.com. The art for the show is made by my best friend, Avery Ott. You can follow him on social media with the handle @AveryRobinOtt. That's AVRY Robin OTT. The show's theme song was composed by Mike Petrie. You can check out the links in the description for both of their work, as well as Jacqueline's. All right, I think that's it. Kids, if you want to piss off your parents, show interest in the arts.
Alyssa Steema's Steema. What's happening to me? What accent am I
Steema,
developing?
I hardly know her.